Chapter 264. Dai Changming's face was extremely unpleasant. He wanted to find a way to escape, but the fear he held towards the elder of the Blood Moon sect was above everything else. He scanned through everyone's faces in the cage. Everyone here was pale. However, Dai Changming's sight fixed. Where's Yi Qingtang? Everyone was here except Yi Qingtang. Qin Huan also realized that. Zhou Chu was scared to death. He felt jealous when he realized that Yi Qingtang was not there. She ran away. She left us and ran away. What a coward she is. We should not have brought her along. He shouted. Though he was cursing, he wished that the one who escaped was him. Everyone was silent after Zhou Chu's curse. They all understood the hopeless situation they were in right now. They were like ants in front of the elder of the Blood Moon sect. It would be their greatest luck if they could escape from here. No one even imagined standing up and fighting him. Even though Yi Qingtang's action went against the sect's rules, they would not say anything now. Zhou Chu squatted down in fear. He was almost driven to insanity by the desperate feeling. He gave Qin Huan a ferocious stare and said, "Qin Huan, this is your dear junior sister? You bring her along for everything. What did she do in return? She left you and escaped when there was danger. I really pity you." Qin Huan frowned but did not argue with Zhou Chu. What could Yi Qingtang do if she did not escape? She was just a new disciple of the sect. Even the inner sect disciples also did not have any ways to fight off the elder of the Blood Moon sect. What could she do? During the arguments, the elders had killed many people. This time, his target was fixed on the two disciples of the Wind Moon sect. When his sight landed on the innocent youth, a streak of red light sparkled through his eyes. He raised his hand and pointed to the youth who hid behind his senior brother. "Bring him out." The dried-up body could not be used anymore. Even if he absorbed enough essence spirit, he could not change the appearance of the body. The youth gave him a special feeling as he had a rare physique. That was the perfect body for him to use. The zombies walked towards the cage where the two disciples of the Wind Moon sect were at. The youth seldom came out, and he had never experienced such situations before. His face turned pale when he heard that the elder of the Blood Moon sect wanted to take him out. His hands held the sleeves of his senior brother tightly, and his eyes were full of fear. "Senior brother, please help me," the soft voice came from his mouth. He almost cried out. His senior brother's face was very unpleasant. He struggled to hold his breath under the elder's enchanting voice and stood in front of the youth. When the two zombies opened the gate to pull the youth out, the senior brother suppressed his fear and pushed away the two zombies. "Don't touch my junior brother." The pale young man's face was full of cold sweat. He stood straight, protecting the youth behind him. Chapter 265. The youth trembled in fear, and his eyes were full of tears. The elder of the Blood Moon sect squinted his eyes. He smiled as he looked at the young man. He walked slowly to the cage and stared at him in a superior way. When the young man's sight met with the elder's one, he could feel the fear spreading through his body. His face was paler, and the hands that were shielding the youth shivered. Suddenly, the elder of the Blood Moon sect smashed his hand at the young man's chest. The 5 fingers pierced through his chest. A screech exploded from the young man's mouth. A beating heart was dug out by the elder's hand the next second. The young man's body collapsed, and blood flowed out from the wound on his chest. /BOXNOVL. The youth behind stared at the familiar figure in shock. He cried desperately as his senior brother lost all his breath. However, this was not the end yet. The elder of the Blood Moon sect chewed the heart in front of the youth's empty gaze. The mouth that was filled with blood was tilted to an angle. "Don't be overconfident of your ability." The elder threw out a few disdainful words. He did not even look at the dead young man on the ground. Instead, he looked straight at the youth who fell down in horror. Yi Qingtang, who was hiding in the dark, witnessed the bloody scene. When she saw the elder dig out the young man's heart, she could not help but take a cold breath. However, the cold breath exposed herself. The elder, who was about to target the youth, suddenly sensed the breath. He turned his head, and his sight was fixed at the direction where Yi Qingtang was at. The gloomy smile appeared on his face again. Found you? He gave up on attacking the youth as he spoke and immediately dashed towards Yi Qingtang's direction. Yi Qingtang was shocked. She turned and escaped as the elder was approaching her swiftly. Damn it! Qin Huan and the rest, who were in the cage, stared at the two figures in surprise. It's junior sister Yi. Qin Huan held the bar of the cage worriedly and witnessed the two figures disappearing from his sight. Why did she come over? Dai Changming frowned and felt worried as well. It was lucky that she could hide herself previously. She should have gone somewhere safe. She can't escape now. No one can escape. The elder of the Blood Moon sect has found her. She will definitely die. Zhou Chu laughed viciously. If he could not survive, Yi Qingtang must die as well. /BOXNOVL. Everyone stared at him in rage when they heard his malicious curse. Qin Huan held him up in fury and punched his face. Junior sister Yi belongs to the same sect as us. Zhou Chu, what are you up to? Zhou Chu did not feel irritated even though he was punched. He just covered his face and cursed again. How could she run away? Don't daydream anymore. The moment when we stepped into Deer City, no one could make it out alive. However, Yi Qingtang will die in front of us now. Chapter 266. Even though Zhou Chu's words were resentful, no one could argue back. The blood fog that surrounded Deer City had cut off their route of retreat. Who could make it out alive from the hell on earth? It would be the path to death eventually. However, this path was not what Yi Qingtang wanted. Yi Qingtang fled in all directions under the darkness. The wind howled beside her ears, but now, she could not relax at all. The elder of the Blood Moon sect was chasing behind her. He was like a dead ghost, chasing for her life and getting closer and closer. Yi Qingtang was finding the way out continuously in the darkness. Her tiny body was agile and fled everywhere. She ran on top of a roof and jumped to the ground. Yi Qingtang used almost all ways that she had for escaping from her previous life. However, no matter where she fled to, she could not leave Deer City. When she reached the edge of the wall, she wanted to climb up instinctively. However, when she looked up at the blood fog, this last hope also disappeared. Her heart tensed. It was impossible to escape when the whole city was isolated by the blood fog. Run. Why did you stop running? The gloomy voice came from her back. Yi Qingtang turned instantly. The elder of the Blood Moon sect stared deadly at her under the red moonlight. Yi Qingtang felt her heart hanging in the midair. Her right hand held the sword by her waist tightly. The elder of the Blood Moon sect was not in a hurry to kill the fish out of the net. His gaze was fixed on the pale young woman as if he wanted to make fun of his prey. Yi Qingtang narrowed her eyes and looked at the ferocious elder of the Blood Moon sect. There was no way to run. That was not the ending she wanted. Yi Qingtang took a heavy breath and pulled out her sword. The elder of the Blood Moon sect raised his eyebrows. His eyes were full of sarcasm as he witnessed Yi Qingtang's movements. Yi Qingtang wiped off all the nervousness in her eyes and forced herself to be calm. If she could not run away, she would fight for her life. She would not blame anyone whether she survived or died. She had gone through the millions of sufferings in her previous life as she always fought until the last minute. She knew that her ability could not be compared with the elders at all. However, even she knew that it would not work. She would try her best to fight. You are committing suicide. The elder of the Blood Moon sect sneered. When he finished his words, an enchanting force entered Yi Qingtang's ears. The voice was like a ghost that deluded her. The elder of the Blood Moon sect appeared to be extremely strong and frightening all of a sudden. Chapter 267. Under the oppression, the elder of the Blood Moon sect appeared more frightening. His power was like a huge mountain that could not be reached. Yi Qingtang froze. The weird feeling was attacking her again. However, she bit her tongue at the same time, and the stabbing pain made her regain consciousness. This time, she did not hesitate anymore. She pushed herself off the ground. When she flew backward, she released the pocket arrows. 3 light beams flew out of her sleeves. The elder frowned and lifted his hand to crush the 3 arrows. The next second, his figure flashed and appeared in front of Yi Qingtang. The dried hand smashed towards the top of her head. Yi Qingtang was stunned. Based on her instinct that was trained for years, she raised her sword instantly to defend the fatal attack. The elder's hand smashed onto her sword, and the sword broke into pieces within a second. Yi Qingtang backed off immediately. Her hand was numb from the vibration. The elder dashed forward as he missed the first attack. Yi Qingtang took out the sword that belonged to the youth of the Wind Moon sect almost instinctively. Her hand flipped and slashed the sword towards the elder. The elder of the Blood Moon sect sneered and smashed down his hand. Clink. A sound exploded by Yi Qingtang's ears. However, the force of the attack was absorbed by the sword. The entire sword remained in one piece without a single crack. Yi Qingtang's eyes sparkled. She then realized that the sword of the Wind Moon sect was extremely tough. She could not even feel the weight of the sword, and there was a streak of warmth channeling to her palm through the handle. Yi Qingtang felt delighted. The sword that she used previously was assigned to outer sect disciples. It was of the lowest quality. However, the one in her hand was not a normal sword. Yi Qingtang encountered many powerful weapons in her previous life as well. The Qingxian sword that she held some time ago was a rare powerful weapon. Normal swords could never be compared with her sword. The youth of the Wind Moon sect was extremely talented. Since he could enter the inner sect at such a young age, his sword must be special as well. Yi Qingtang felt more confident as she was able to block the elder's attack. Her eyesight was fierce, and she focused on the fighting again. The elder of the Blood Moon sect was surprised. When he saw Yi Qingtang attacking towards him, his sight changed, and he smashed his hand towards her body. The wind howled. Yi Qingtang jumped off the ground and pierced her sharp sword towards the elder of the Blood Moon sect's chest. The elder of the Blood Moon sect immediately raised his hand and smashed towards Yi Qingtang's shoulder. It was too late for her to pull off. She faced the attack straight and found a chance in between to pierce her sword down. The image of the disciple being smashed into pieces by the elder was still in her head. However, she could not care about so much now. As the elder's hand landed on her shoulder, her sword also pierced through his dried skin at the same time. Chapter 268. The elder's face suddenly changed at the next second. He pulled back immediately to avoid Yi Qingtang's sword piercing through his body. Yi Qingtang's attack did hurt the elder of the Blood Moon sect, but it did not meet her expectations. She frowned as she landed. However, she felt the pain from her shoulder and turned to look at it instinctively. The clothes on her shoulder were dyed red by blood, but she suddenly felt delighted. Seemed like it was not as terrible as what she imagined. Yi Qingtang covered the wound on her shoulder. Though it was injured severely by the elder's hand, this was totally incomparable to the pain of the disciple who was smashed into pieces previously. A shocking thought emerged in her brain. She raised her head and stared at the elder of the Blood Moon sect. Her eyes were fierce. Without any hesitation, she raised her sword and dashed forward again. The elder of the Blood Moon sect struck back immediately. The moment when Yi Qingtang approached the elder, she lowered her body and lifted up her left arm. She pierced her sword directly at the elder's abdomen area while her arm resisted the elder's smash. The elder of the Blood Moon sect smashed his hand down, but he felt a stabbing pain by his waist. He was stunned and backed off. Yi Qingtang hunched her body and looked at the arm that was smashed by the elder. She rolled up her sleeves and stared at the blue-black area on her arm. It was very obvious on her white skin. However, Yi Qingtang sneered as she saw the blue-black area on her arm. She raised her head and looked towards the elder of the Blood Moon sect, who was astonished. It was not her illusion. She was correct. Yi Qingtang had previously suspected that the elder of the Blood Moon sect was bluffing. He should not need to use the enchanting voice to delude the disciples with his full power. However, Yi Qingtang gave up on this thought when she witnessed the disciple being smashed into pieces. However, the first attack smashed her sword, but the strength of the next two was weakening. Yi Qingtang straightened her body and smiled. It seemed like the elder of the Blood Moon sect just came back to life not long ago. His strength had not recovered yet. Everything just now was done by the enchanting voice to delude people. The few attacks had used up all the strength that he recovered. The elder of the Blood Moon sect froze as he looked at Yi Qingtang's smiling face. Little girl, you are quite talented and brave. Today I'll let you go. The elder of the Blood Moon sect then wanted to leave. However, Yi Qingtang had figured out that he was just bluffing. How could she just let him go away now? She jumped in front of the elder and stabbed her sword towards his face. The elder opened his eyes wide. He did not expect to meet such a weird disciple. His enchanting voice did not work on her at all. This person was insane. She dared to challenge him even when she knew that he was the elder of the Blood Moon sect. Chapter 269. The essence spirit that the elder of the Blood Moon sect absorbed from the disciples was not enough to fill his powerful body. The strength he recovered was just 1 out of 1,000%. Everything was going according to the elder's plan. His enchanting voice could delude the disciples and make them lose their fighting ability. He then threatened everyone with that smash. However, Yi Qingtang showed up midway. Suddenly, the elder's face was extremely unpleasant. His essence spirit was not enough to support his strength. This time, the elder of the Blood Moon sect was in a real dilemma. Yi Qingtang had figured out his disguise. Now with the sword in her hand, she could use the skills she had accumulated for 300 years in her previous life to beat the elder even though her cultivated spirit energy was not strong enough. Almost instantly, the elder's body was full of cuts. Even though there was no blood dripping, the pain was obvious. The longer the fight was, the more the essence spirit he used. He was becoming weaker and weaker. He could fight with Yi Qingtang for a few rounds previously, but now he was panting heavily from Yi Qingtang's attacks. The elder of the Blood Moon sect knew that he would definitely lose if he continued the fight. He immediately used the last essence spirit in his body and shouted towards Yi Qingtang. "How dare you!" The roar was mixed with strong diluting effects. Yi Qingtang's body froze when she heard that. The elder of the Blood Moon sect then ran away immediately during the gap. However, Yi Qingtang was only stunned for a moment. The presence of the heart of the demon god allowed her to regain consciousness soon. She narrowed her eyes as she saw the elder of the Blood Moon sect, who was 100 meters away. She stepped onto the wall and took a leap. The sword in her hand was thrown out fiercely. The sword appeared to be a streak of light under the moonlight and shot towards the elder of the Blood Moon sect directly. The elder of the Blood Moon sect could sense the cool air from his back. He wanted to dodge, but the speed of the sword was too fast. It pierced through his abdomen instantly. The great force of impact brought him down to the ground, and he was pinned to the ground as the head of the sword landed. The elder's dried face was full of astonishment. What happened? Why did his enchanting voice not work on the young lady? Though he was pinned onto the ground, it was not enough for him to die. When he was about to pull out the sword from his body, Yi Qingtang walked to him silently. There was an evil smile on that delicate face, which made the elder of the Blood Moon sect shiver. Trying to run? Not so easy. Yi Qingtang smiled at the confounded elder. She held the handle of the sword and pushed downward heavily. Puff! The sword went into the ground by a few more inches, leaving only the handle outside. The elder was pinned securely onto the ground. The elder's face was dark. His eyes were opened wide and stared at Yi Qingtang, who was smiling at him. What kind of monster is this girl? Chapter 270. What do you want? The elder's face was stiff. He could never imagine that one day, as the elder of the Blood Moon sect, he would be defeated by a sect disciple. What do I want? Yi Qingtang lifted her eyebrows and smiled at the elder of the Blood Moon sect, who appeared very insidious. She knocked her fingers on the handle of the sword. The subtle vibration was transmitted to the elder's body through the sword. Though he would not be dead as there was no blood loss, the pain was extremely sharp. Yi Qingtang squinted her eyes and bent her body lower. She stared at the red eyes of the elder and suddenly said, "Submission or death?" The elder's face immediately darkened. How familiar the sentence was to him. That was what he said to the disciples of the Xianling sect previously. You dare to ask me to succumb? I am the elder of the Blood Moon sect. You are nobody. How dare you to... The elder of the Blood Moon sect was still cursing, but the next second, Yi Qingtang just turned the handle of the sword. The moment the edge of the sword was spinning in the body, The elder of the Blood Moon sect screamed in pain as his flesh was cut through by the sword. Yi Qingtang just continued smiling at the elder who held his fist tightly. How? If you don't want to choose, I can help you. If I chop your head off and bring it back to the sect, I think I will get quite a lot of rewards. Disciples from all sects were murdered by the elder of the Blood Moon sect. Now, every sect was investigating the truth. It would be an amazing achievement to kill an elder of the Blood Moon sect. The elder's face was extremely dark. He could never imagine that a disciple of an orthodox sect would be so cruel as well. The sinister look in her eyes made the elder of the Blood Moon sect suspect that this girl was an undercover of some evil sect. His influence in the past terrified all sects. However, he was forced to succumb to a sect disciple who appeared to be so vulnerable. He had never imagined such shame before. Yi Qingtang was not in a rush, but her hands turned the sword slowly. The elder was full of cold sweat from the pain, and there was no single trace of cruelty on him from when he killed the disciples previously. Actually, Yi Qingtang never intended to kill the elder of the Blood Moon sect. Even if she wanted to, she could not break the evil ability he had that kept him immortal. Handing over the elder of the Blood Moon sect to the sect? She did not even think of that at all. The heretic spirits that were suppressed were coming back to life now. They would be alive soon. Which sect dared to lock up an elder of the Blood Moon sect when it was so strong now? This was like asking the Blood Moon sect to eliminate all the other sects. She could not kill him or hand him over. Thus, she had another thought. Even though the elder of the Blood Moon sect was useless now, when his power was fully recovered, he would be a horrifying presence then. If she could use that power for herself, would it not be a great advantage for her? Yi Qingtang had quite a few thoughts as she waited for the elder to take the bait. However, her face was still filled with the evil smile that made the elder of the Blood Moon sect panic, as if she would kill him any time according to her mood. It took him so much effort to regain his consciousness. If he was severely injured again, it would take at least 1,000 years to recover. Chapter 271 Now. The elder's mouth shivered. He bared with the pain and forced an ugly smile out. We can discuss. We can discuss. I'm willing to succumb to you and serve you. The elder pledged his loyalty, but his eyes were evil. As long as he could escape, he would see what the girl could do to him then. Yi Qingtang smiled as she heard his words. That's right. She chuckled and pulled out the sword slightly. The elder of the Blood Moon sect stared at the sword that was slowly pulled out from his body. He concentrated all his energy and was ready to escape once Yi Qingtang pulled out the sword. However, the nervousness that was shown in his eyes was captured by Yi Qingtang. The instant when the sword was about to be pulled out, Yi Qingtang turned her hands and pushed downwards. The sword was pierced back again. The sharp pain immediately spread through his body, and the elder of the Blood Moon sect was full of cold sweat. His teeth trembled, and he stared at Yi Qingtang. When he met with Yi Qingtang's complex sight, he instantly hid all the malice in his eyes. What is this for? I have succumbed to you, right? The elder forced a smile. Yi Qingtang squinted her eyes slightly and smiled. You are right, but, to be safe, I think we should have a contract. Then, if you want to run away, I will not need to waste my energy to chase you back. The elder of the Blood Moon sect cursed Yi Qingtang in his heart as he heard her ironic words. His eyes revealed his guilty conscience. Yi Qingtang really predicted his intention. However, the elder of the Blood Moon sect would not reveal his thoughts so easily. He smiled and said, How will I run away when I can't even beat you? You think too much. Is it? You're not wrong. But the contract serves as insurance, right? Yi Qingtang lifted her brows, but she showed a more splendid smile. The elder of the Blood Moon sect cursed Yi Qingtang for being so cunning secretly, but he did not dare to say anything. Though he was still pinned to the ground, he was full of plans to escape. If the contract was completed, he would never be able to hurt Yi Qingtang anymore, as he would be killed by the contract. Unless he could kill her instantly so that it would not trigger the contract. However, he could not achieve that based on his current situation. Under the elder's desperate sight, Yi Qingtang lifted her hand and bit her fingertip. A drop of blood came out of her finger. She immediately touched the elder's blood moon at the glabella with the finger. The elder's body trembled. The moment when the blood diffused into the skin, the contract was completed. Yi Qingtang pulled out the sword after the contract was done. The elder of the Blood Moon sect sat up when he regained his freedom, but he felt brain dead. He was forced to complete a contract with a sect disciple. The thought of escaping was totally out of his mind now. His energy was greatly depleted during the fight previously, and the body that just recovered could not take it anymore. If he escaped now, the body would decay soon. Furthermore, he made a contract with Yi Qingtang. What difference would it make now if he escaped? Chapter 271. One sponsored content. The elder of the Blood Moon sect sighed, but his eyes showed a trace of cunning. The contract would only limit him for the time being. When his power was fully recovered, it would be easy to kill a sect disciple within a second. The contract would not be triggered on time, and he would be free from the contract. The elder's mood was slightly better. He stood up and looked at Yi Qingtang. Yi Qingtang sensed the cunning look from the elder. She clearly knew the key of the contract. It was a double-edged sword to have a contract with the elder of the Blood Moon sect. Since she dared to sign the contract, she would never give any chance for the elder to kill her in a second. Sponsored content. She must be more powerful soon. My name is Yi Qingtang. You will follow me in the future, Yi Qingtang said. The elder's mouth shivered, but he eventually accepted the situation. He rolled his eyes and said, "You are a sect disciple. It's not very appropriate for me to follow you with this body, right?" Yi Qingtang sized up his body. If he followed her with this dried-up corpse, they would be killed if they met any orthodox people. She did not need to imagine returning to the sect. "What's your thought?" Yi Qingtang asked. The elder contemplated for a while, hid the trace of cunning in his eyes, and said, "I will be a burden to you with this body. But if I can change a body, that will be fine." Sponsored content. Change a body? Yi Qingtang frowned but did not say anything. The elder noticed that she hesitated and immediately added, "There were quite a few sect disciples there just now. The youth is a good choice. I can follow you in the future if I take over his body." Yi Qingtang remembered how the elder wanted to kill the youth of the Wind Moon sect, and her face clouded instantly. "No." The elder gritted his teeth. "If he can't, I can take your senior brother's body as well. It will be more convenient for me to follow you. I think the young man who leads the team is not bad." He was referring to Dai Changming. Yi Qingtang shook her head. "How about the handsome young man? I think he is suitable as well." The elder suggested again. Yi Qingtang gave him a cold glance. How dare him suggest to take over her senior brother Qin's body? Sponsored content. Don't even think about it. The elder of the Blood Moon sect opened his mouth but was speechless. Was he going to follow her with this dried-up body? Yi Qingtang noticed that as well, but she could never allow him to take those innocent disciples' bodies. However, the figure suddenly appeared in her brain. She showed an evil smile and said, "I can provide you with one person. You ask the zombies to bring the strongest man over." The elder of the Blood Moon sect did not know who Yi Qingtang picked, but he still gave the order to the zombies at the square with mind control. It was dead silent at the square. Everyone's face was extremely unpleasant as the blood fog spread around. Note: please download the sponsor's game to support us. Chapter 271. Chapter 275. The Contract 3. Sponsored content. Zhou Chu squatted at the corner of the cage. He stared at Qin Huan, who constantly looked outside, and said in a weird tone, "Qin Huan, don't dream about it anymore. That is the elder of the Blood Moon sect. Yi Qingtang will never be qualified to be his opponent. She'll definitely be dead when the elder digs out her heart. She doesn't even know her own ability. If she hid away, she would not have such consequences." Qin Huan turned his head and stared at Zhou Chu. If Dai Changming had not stopped him, he would have beaten Zhou Chu to death. They belonged to the same sect, but Zhou Chu wanted Yi Qingtang to be dead all the time. Don't waste your time worrying about her. You should think about how to escape now. When the elder of the Blood Moon sect finishes eating her heart, he will return to kill us again, Zhou Chu said. Qin Huan held his fists tightly. Sponsored content. I was too nervous just now and forgot to crush the soft jade. The sect elders should be nearby. It may not be too late if we crush the soft jade now, Dai Changming said. Qin Huan said coldly, there's no need for that. Junior sister Yi had crushed the soft jade when we saw the elder of the Blood Moon sect. If the elders are around, they should be on their way now. What? Dai Changming was stunned. Yi Qingtang could still remain that calm at that kind of moment? Zhou Chu's eyes sparkled as he heard the news. She still has some use then. Luckily, she came to get killed so that she could buy us some time. Hope the elders can reach us as soon as possible, Zhou Chu said. Sponsored content. Everyone stared at him in rage. Qin Huan was about to kick his face. However, the zombies suddenly moved. They opened the cage which Qin Huan and rest were in. They pulled the strongest Zhou Chu out of the corner. Zhou Chu's face was pale. He held the bars of the cage tightly, and cold sweat was flowing down his head. Senior brother Dai. Help me, help me. Dai Changming was stunned and wanted to reach for him instinctively. However, Qin Huan stopped him. Qin Huan stood in front of Dai Changming and stared at Zhou Chu, whose face was totally pale. Zhou Chu, you're right. If you can buy us some time, we may survive. Thus, we will hand over the task to you. Qin Huan kicked Zhou Chu's hands away from the bars, and Zhou Chu was pulled out by the zombies. Dai Changming frowned but did not move anymore. The other disciples who witnessed the scene surprisingly did not speak at all. Zhou Chu hid at the back for the whole time. It was obvious that he wanted the rest to die first. However, he never imagined that he would be the first one to die. Sponsored content. Zhou Chu cried and screamed. He was dragged away by the zombies towards the walls of Deer City through the dark path. Zhou Chu struggled and screamed along the way. However, his arms were held tightly by the zombies. It was impossible for him to escape. Zhou Chu was brought to the walls in a short while. His whole body was soaked with cold sweat, and his legs were trembling. When he lifted his eyes, he was shocked when he saw Yi Qingtang, who was standing a few steps away. Yi Qingtang? She is not dead. Note, please download the sponsor's game to support us. Chapter 272. The elder of the Blood Moon sect sighed, but his eyes showed a trace of cunning. The contract would only limit him for the time being. When his power was fully recovered, it would be easy to kill a sect disciple within a second. The contract would not be triggered on time, and he would be free from the contract. The elder's mood was slightly better. He stood up and looked at Yi Qingtang. Yi Qingtang sensed the cunning look from the elder. She clearly knew the key of the contract. It was a double-edged sword to have a contract with the elder of the Blood Moon sect. Since she dared to sign the contract, she would never give any chance for the elder to kill her in a second. She must be more powerful soon. My name is Yi Qingtang. You will follow me in the future, Yi Qingtang said. The elder's mouth shivered, but he eventually accepted the situation. He rolled his eyes and said, You are a sect disciple. It's not very appropriate for me to follow you with this body, right? Yi Qingtang sized up his body. If he followed her with this dried-up corpse, they would be killed if they met any orthodox people. She did not need to imagine returning to the sect. What's your thought? Yi Qingtang asked. The elder contemplated for a while, hid the trace of cunning in his eyes, and said, I will be a burden to you with this body. But if I can change a body, that will be fine. Change a body? Yi Qingtang frowned but did not say anything. The elder noticed that she hesitated and immediately added, There were quite a few sect disciples there just now. The youth is a good choice. I can follow you in the future if I take over his body. Yi Qingtang remembered how the elder wanted to kill the youth of the Wind Moon sect, and her face clouded instantly. No. The elder gritted his teeth. If he can't, I can take your senior brother's body as well. It will be more convenient for me to follow you. I think the young man who leads the team is not bad. He was referring to Dai Changming. Yi Qingtang shook her head. How about the handsome young man? I think he is suitable as well. The elder suggested again. Yi Qingtang gave him a cold glance. How dare him suggest to take over her senior brother Qin's body? Don't even think about it. The elder of the Blood Moon sect opened his mouth but was speechless. Was he going to follow her with this dried-up body? Yi Qingtang noticed that as well, but she could never allow him to take those innocent disciples' bodies. However, a figure suddenly appeared in her brain. She showed an evil smile and said, "I can provide you with one person. You ask the zombies to bring the strongest man over." The elder of the Blood Moon sect did not know who Yi Qingtang picked, but he still gave the order to the zombies at the square with mind control. It was dead silent at the square. Everyone's face was extremely unpleasant as the blood fog spread around. Chapter 273. Zhou Chu squatted at the corner of the cage. He stared at Qin Huan, who constantly looked outside, and said in a weird tone, "Qin Huan, don't dream about it anymore. That is the elder of the Blood Moon sect. Yi Qingtang will never be qualified to be his opponent. She'll definitely be dead when the elder digs out her heart. She doesn't even know her own ability. If she hid away, she would not have such consequences." Qin Huan turned his head and stared at Zhou Chu. If Dai Changming had not stopped him, he would have beaten Zhou Chu to death. They belonged to the same sect, but Zhou Chu wanted Yi Qingtang to be dead all the time. Don't waste your time worrying about her. You should think about how to escape now. When the elder of the Blood Moon sect finishes eating her heart, he will return to kill us again, Zhou Chu said. Qin Huan held his fists tightly. "I was too nervous just now and forgot to crush the soft jade. The sect elders should be nearby. It may not be too late if we crush the soft jade now," Dai Changming said. Qin Huan said coldly, "There's no need for that. Junior sister Yi had crushed the soft jade when we saw the elder of the Blood Moon sect. If the elders are around, they should be on their way now." What? Dai Changming was stunned. Yi Qingtang could still remain that calm at that kind of moment? Zhou Chu's eyes sparkled as he heard the news. She still has some use then. Luckily, she came to get killed so that she could buy us some time. "Hope the elders can reach us as soon as possible," Zhou Chu said. Everyone stared at him in rage. Qin Huan was about to kick his face. However, the zombies suddenly moved. They opened the cage which Qin Huan and rest were in. They pulled the strongest Zhou Chu out of the corner. Zhou Chu's face was pale. He held the bars of the cage tightly, and cold sweat was flowing down his head. "Senior brother Dai. Help me, help me." Dai Changming was stunned and wanted to reach for him instinctively. However, Qin Huan stopped him. Qin Huan stood in front of Dai Changming and stared at Zhou Chu, whose face was totally pale. "Zhou Chu, you're right. If you can buy us some time, we may survive. Thus, we will hand over the task to you." Qin Huan kicked Zhou Chu's hands away from the bars, and Zhou Chu was pulled out by the zombies. Dai Changming frowned but did not move anymore. The other disciples who witnessed the scene surprisingly did not speak at all. Zhou Chu hid at the back for the whole time. It was obvious that he wanted the rest to die first. However, he never imagined that he would be the first one to die. Zhou Chu cried and screamed. He was dragged away by the zombies towards the walls of Deer City through the dark path. Zhou Chu struggled and screamed along the way. However, his arms were held tightly by the zombies. It was impossible for him to escape. Zhou Chu was brought to the walls in a short while. His whole body was soaked with cold sweat, and his legs were trembling. When he lifted his eyes, he was shocked when he saw Yi Qingtang, who was standing a few steps away. "Yi Qingtang? She is not dead." Chapter 274. Zhou Chu originally thought that Yi Qingtang would definitely be dead after the Blood Moon sect elder chased after her. Yet, unexpectedly, Yi Qingtang was actually standing before him, well and alive. In just a moment, Zhou Chu shouted, "Yi Qingtang, why are you still standing over there? Come and save me." Yi Qingtang stood rooted to the ground calmly and looked at the loud Zhou Chu with a faint smile. "Yi Qingtang, why are you spacing out? You're a coward who only knows how to escape. Kill these two zombies. If the sect knows that you ignored the safety of other senior brothers in the sect and fled on your own, you'll definitely be expelled out of the sect." Zhou Chu frowned deeply as he struggled while barking loudly. However, such seemingly upright scolding was somehow funny when it came out from his mouth. Yi Qingtang tilted her head slightly and looked at Zhou Chu, who barked incessantly. Zhou Chu, I did not flee on my own. Am I not here to rescue all my senior brothers now? Zhou Chu was slightly surprised and immediately shouted, then quickly get over here to save me. However, Yi Qingtang only looked at Zhou Chu smilingly. Zhou Chu was going to yell again, but a figure suddenly appeared beside Yi Qingtang. With just a look, all his previous craziness vanished immediately. All color faded from his face, and his legs wobbled when he saw the Blood Moon Sect elder beside Yi Qingtang. The Blood Moon Sect elder's eyes fell on Zhou Chu and sized up the sect disciple before him. Then, his brows were furrowed, and dissatisfaction emerged in his eyes. He looked at Yi Qingtang and said, "The person you chose for me is him? His physical constitution is too lousy already." Zhou Chu was stunned. What did that mean? Yi Qingtang cast the Blood Moon Sect elder a look and replied casually, "That's him. Take it or leave it." The Blood Moon Sect elder's lips twitched. At that instant, he did not have any room for being choosy. As the two people talked, Zhou Chu suddenly realized something. His eyes widened, and he glared at Yi Qingtang furiously. "Yi Qingtang, you actually submitted to the Blood Moon Sect. As a sect disciple, do you even care about the sect's honor? You're utterly shameless." Zhou Chu snarled in fear and uneasiness. No one knew that if he had an option, he would rather replace Yi Qingtang's position. As long as the Blood Moon Sect elder did not kill him, he would be willing to do anything that the Blood Moon Sect elder told him to. Yi Qingtang raised a brow at Zhou Chu, who was as miserable as a mad dog. She glanced at the Blood Moon Sect elder from the corner of her eyes, and her lips curled up slightly. "Submit?" She chuckled. "Zhou Chu, you've got it wrong. I am his master." With that, Zhou Chu was completely frozen. While the expression of Blood Moon Sect elder beside her darkened, considering that he could not defeat Yi Qingtang, the elder could only force himself to forego his face and confirmed. "That's right. I will listen to Lord Yes' arrangements for everything." What even? Zhou Chu stretched his neck out, and his entire body trembled. His popped eyes stared at the smiling Yi Qingtang. At that instant, her exquisite face was like a nightmare which devoured his soul. "Plus, master? Who exactly are you?" Zhou Chu panicked. Never would he have expected that her reply would be this unimaginable. Yi Qingtang is the Blood Moon Sect elder's master? How could this be? Zhou Chu was simply unwilling to believe everything, but the Blood Moon Sect elder's behavior was completely like that of a servant. There was no way Zhou Chu could deny it. Chapter 275. In an instant, Zhou Chu collapsed. His face turned extremely pale, and the expression he used to look at Yi Qingtang turned into boundless fear. "Junior sister? Lord Yi, I'm wrong. I failed to recognize your formidability and spouted nonsense. Just treat me as a fart. I beg you to let me off, please. I will definitely work as a slave for you. I will do anything you ask of me." Zhou Chu was utterly shocked. At this instant, Zhou Chu finally realized how foolish he had been. How scary was Yi Qingtang's identity for her to be able to be the Blood Moon Sect elder's master? Could it be that she was even the Blood Moon Sect's holy lady? At that thought, Zhou Chu was already frightened out of his wits. If he knew this before, he would definitely not dare to offend Yi Qingtang no matter what. Zhou Chu begged in tears. If not for the fact that he was held by the two zombies, he would probably have kowtowed to Yi Qingtang and begged for mercy. Yi Qingtang looked coldly at Zhou Chu, who was covered in tears and mucus. There was not a trace of pity in her eyes. "Do anything I ask of you? Are you not going to seek revenge for your older brother Zhou Xian?" Yi Qingtang raised a brow. Zhou Chu immediately shook his head like a rattle drum and frantically said, "My brother brought it to himself. Spare my life, Lord Yi. I really did not oppose you on purpose. It's all the inner sect Ning Luo's idea. He was the one who made me and my brother find a chance to get rid of you. It really has nothing to do with me. I am wrong." Zhou Chu wailed and directly pushed all the blame to Ning Luo, not daring to say that he had personal motives for opposing Yi Qingtang initially. Ning Luo? Yi Qingtang frowned. She had heard of Ning Luo's name in her previous life. He was the top genius in the inner sect of Xianling sect and was also the favorite disciple of the inner sect sword faction's elder. He was extremely talented. However, Yi Qingtang did not cross paths with him in both her previous and current lifetimes. Now, she had only entered Xianling sect for a few months. Why was it that Ning Luo suddenly targeted her? Yi Qingtang could not find an answer no matter how she thought. Zhou Chu saw Yi Qingtang's reaction and said hurriedly as though he clutched the last straw which could save his life, "It's all Ning Luo. Right after you passed the sect assessment, Ning Luo sent someone to my brother and told him to kill you somehow. My brother and I are only outer sect disciples, but Ning Luo was an inner sect elite. Obviously, we didn't dare to disobey his orders. Thus, we offended you. Please spare my life." Yi Qingtang looked down. After thinking over and over, she still did not know when she bred enmity with Ning Luo. However, Yi Qingtang looked up and fixed her eyes on Zhou Chu again. Her lips suddenly curled into a smile. "So I accused you?" Zhou Chu swallowed his saliva, and his heart palpitated violently. Yi Qingtang said, "Since it is so, I'll give you a chance." Zhou Chu widened his eyes, and hope filled his eyes. Then, Yi Qingtang looked away and continued, "I'll give you a chance to become a Blood Moon sect elder." Once Yi Qingtang finished her sentence, Zhou Chu gasped, and an ominous feeling rose within him. In the next second, Yi Qingtang darted a look at the Blood Moon sect elder who had been waiting for a long time. "Now, his body is yours." "No!" Zhou Chu screamed in horror as the Blood Moon sect elder took a step forward and appeared before Zhou Chu. Chapter 276. The dry, savage face of the Blood Moon sect elder was suddenly reflected in Zhou Chu's fearful eyes. The Blood Moon sect elder placed a hand on top of Zhou Chu's and held it tightly. Opening its mouth wide, blood fog suddenly emitted out from the Blood Moon sect elder's mouth and entered Zhou Chu's eyes, nose, mouth, and ears. As the blood fog gradually entered Zhou Chu's body, the Blood Moon sect elder's eye lost its insidious glint, and the dried body fell on the ground with a loud sound. While the horror on Zhou Chu's face suddenly disappeared, the two zombies beside him released their hold on him instantly. Zhou Chu frowned slightly. Looking at his hands, he took a deep breath, and the blood fog that lingered on his face was absorbed into the body. When he looked up, his eyes no longer contained despair and was replaced with a solemn expression instead. A blood crescent symbol appeared between his brows. Yi Qingtang watched this strange scene, and after noticing that the expression in Zhou Chu's eyes changed, she knew that the Zhou Chu before her was already possessed by the Blood Moon sect elder. This person's endowment is inferior, and his body is too lousy. Despise was written all over the Blood Moon sect elder's face. Although he changed into a living and muscular body, this person's body was exasperatingly lousy when compared to the young boy from Wind Moon sect whom he had his eyes on previously. "Be contented," Yi Qingtang said while folding her arms. If Zhou Chu was not here, she really would not be able to find an unlucky person for the Blood Moon sect elder to possess. The Blood Moon sect elder touched his face and calmed down a little after feeling that this body was, at least, much more supple than that dried corpse. This person is called Zhou Chu, and he's an outer sect disciple of Xianling sect. He had an older brother previously, but the brother is already dead. You only need to follow me using his identity. Yi Qingtang ordered the Blood Moon sect elder. The Blood Moon sect elder listened obediently. The dried corpse that had lost a soul laid on the ground silently. The Blood Moon sect elder looked at his previous body emotionlessly. He bent down, removed some belongings from the corpse, and took out a revolving soul orb that was about the size of a palm from his cloak. That revolving soul orb looked crystal clear, but there was a clump of fog in the orb while its top and bottom ends each had a dragon claw of which the entire orb was set between. When the Blood Moon sect elder saw this revolving soul orb, his heart wavered. He put on a casual act and brought it to Yi Qingtang. Yi Qingtang looked at the object in the Blood Moon sect elder's hand questioningly. "What is this?" The Blood Moon sect elder replied. "This is the revolving soul orb and is one of the secret treasures of the Blood Moon sect. It can absorb the essence in the world and transfer it for the holder to absorb. It is a weapon to raise one's cultivation. Since there's a contract between us, I'll just gift this to you. Yi Qingtang raised a brow slightly. Was he so kind? How do I use this thing? Yi Qingtang took the revolving soul orb over and inspected it. The Blood Moon Sect elder replied. You must be at the peak of martial chi level 2 to use this item. Yi Qingtang's interest was initially piqued as she felt that this revolving soul orb was a treasure that was hard to come by. But when she heard the words, martial chi level 2, the interest in her heart vanished completely. Peak of martial chi level 2? What was that concept? In terms of sex, normal outer sect disciples were at most Khanate level 9. Only by entering the inner sect to cultivate was one able to truly be exposed to the martial chi realm. Chapter 277. Martial Chi was a grade that only inner sect disciples possessed. There were 3 grades between Martial Chi level 1 and Martial Chi level 2, which were called First Heaven, Second Heaven, and Third Heaven. Between each of these 3 grades, there were 3 stages. Advancing from each stage was extremely difficult. In Shenling sect, those who could reach this realm most likely were only the inner sect elders who were in charge of internal affairs. He was truly someone the status of a Blood Moon sect elder. Even though he had been miserable for thousands of years, a casual item he took out was already a martial chi level 2 treasure. Yi Qingtang lived for 300 over years in her previous life, and she was already at the paragon level when she suffered a downfall. She had seen many of such treasures and obviously knew how beneficial this item was to people at the peak of martial chi level 2. However, it was useless to the current Yi Qingtang, and she could only keep it for future use. Thank you then. Yi Qingtang kept the revolving soul orb. Don't mention about it. This is what I should do. I can't use this item for now, and there's no use leaving it aside. The Blood Moon Sect elder was elated when he saw Yi Qingtang keeping the revolving soul orb. This revolving soul orb was indeed as powerful as what he said, but it had a disadvantage. The revolving soul orb would absorb the essence in the world continuously, and if the essence was not absorbed by someone for a long time, the essence would exceed the revolving soul orb's capacity and explode. The Blood Moon Sect elder narrowed his eyes slightly and hid away the sly look in his eyes. He was destined to be unable to kill Yi Qingtang right now because of the contract between them, but if she died from the revolving soul orb's explosion, it would be completely unrelated to him. When she died, the contract would naturally be nullified, and he could regain his freedom. The Blood Moon Sect elder planned out everything well in his heart, though his face did not reveal anything. Get rid of your corpse. You're Zhou from now on, Yi Qingtang said. Your corpse. The Blood Moon Sect elder's lips twitched but still obediently picked up his dried corpse and absorbed all the remaining energy. This dried corpse had been in existence for thousands of years, and it was the Blood Moon Sect elder's power which allowed the corpse to maintain its current appearance. Now that it lost its very last remnants of energy, the corpse quickly turned into ash and vanished along with the wind. Yi Qingtang nodded at the sight and led the Blood Moon Sect elder towards the square where the disciples were locked up at. As she walked, she added on, "Get rid of the blood fog around the city. You cannot touch those people in the square anymore." The Blood Moon Sect elder accepted the orders in obedience but sneered internally. "I'll let you order me around now. When that revolving soul orb explodes." In the square, the people in despair looked at the red light that filled the sky, and the shadow of death remained in their eyes. Qin Huan sat in the cage distraughtly as he pulled his hair. Regret was written all over his face. "I should not have brought junior sister Yi here. It's all my fault. I brought harm onto her." At that moment, Qin Huan was extremely regretful. Had he known how dangerous this trip was, he would definitely not agree to bring Yi Qingtang along. It was ultimately too late now. Dai Chengming sighed quietly. Under such circumstances, all of them had become lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Dai Chengming glanced across the bloody scene around him, but his eyes were suddenly attracted by 2 figures not far away. He suddenly widened his eyes and patted the regretful Qin Huan. "Junior brother Qin, take a look quickly." "Who is that?" Qin Huan looked up with a weary expression but was utterly stunned from the sight. He rushed forward and clutched on the metal cage tightly. Shock filled his eyes when he saw the figure that was nearing them. Junior Sister Yi. Chapter 278. Yi Qingtang and the emotionless Zhou Chu walked into the square together. Not just Qin Huan but other Xianling sect disciples were all dumbfounded. What was this situation? How did the two of them actually return? The two people that were originally thought to be definitely dead walked into everyone's line of sight. Qin Huan returned to his senses and spoke hurriedly. Junior Sister Yi, leave now. That bastard elder might return again. Qin Huan's face was full of worry. However, Yi Qingtang could not help but laugh at his words. She secretly peered at the bastard elder beside her from the corner of her eyes and saw that the Blood Moon sect elder's expression was completely dark. If not for Yi Qingtang's warning to not touch these people, he would have already dug Qin Huan's heart out and bit it into pieces. Who is a bastard? Your entire family is filled with bastards. Yi Qingtang held her laughter back and walked to the metal cage with a serious expression. Hacking the cage door with her sword, she said, "The Blood Moon sect elder left already. Don't worry, senior brothers. I think he will not be back for a while." Everyone was stunned. Left already? Qin Huan repeated, dumbfounded. I don't know why either, but he suddenly left. Yi Qingtang was lazy to come up with a reason. Anyway, the Blood Moon sect was extremely mysterious to everyone, and it never left any trace in their movements. Thus, she could get away with a random excuse. The frightened Xianling sect disciples fell into a trance as they looked at the open cage. Why did it leave just like that? After releasing all her senior brothers, Yi Qingtang headed to another cage. The other cages in the square were long empty, and the ground was piled with corpses. Only in that cage sat a young boy whose eyes were swollen from crying. He sat there absent-mindedly and seemed to have no more tears left to cry. His hollow eyes looked at the dead body of his senior brother which laid in his hands, and he did not sense any movement in his surrounding. When Yi Qingtang saw that young teen from Wind Moon sect, she could not help but lament internally. She walked forward and slashed the cage. Your senior brother protected you with his life not because he wants to see you being defeated like this, Yi Qingtang said and stood beside the youth. The young teen suddenly lifted his head up, and his teary eyes looked at Yi Qingtang in confusion. He knew that the Blood Moon sect elder targeted him just now, but it was because of this girl's sudden appearance which attracted the Blood Moon sect elder's appearance, thus allowing him to escape a calamity. Senior brother, the boy just said something, but tears fell uncontrollably. Tears stained his small face, and this really made one feel sorry. Yi Qingtang handed the sword in her hand to the young teen. Live on well. You can only avenge your senior brother by making yourself even more powerful. The Blood Moon sect elder who was standing aside felt the corners of his lips twitch. The boy looked at the sword that he lost and then looked down at his senior brother's corpse. He sniffed, wiped away his tears, and stretched a hand out to grab the sword. I must avenge senior brother. I will personally chop off that old demon's head. The old demon. In just a short while, the Blood Moon sect elder became both a bastard and an old demon, and this was probably way more than the number of curses he heard in thousands of years. Everyone escaped from the cage and regained freedom, but no one was able to relax in this bloody scene. Chapter 279. Martial Qi was a grade that only inner sect disciples possessed. There were 3 grades between Martial Qi Level 1 and Martial Qi Level 2 which were called First Heaven, Second Heaven, and Third Heaven. Between each of these 3 grades, there were 3 stages. Advancing from each stage was extremely difficult. In Xianling sect, those who could reach this realm most likely were only the inner sect elders who were in charge of internal affairs. He was truly someone the status of a Blood Moon sect elder, even though he had been miserable for thousands of years. A casual item he took out was already a Martial Qi Level 2 treasure. Yi Qingtang lived for 300 over years in her previous life, and she was already at the Paragon level when she suffered a downfall. She had seen many of such treasures and obviously knew how beneficial this item was to people at the peak of Martial Qi Level 2. However, it was useless to the current Yi Qingtang, and she could only keep it for future use. Thank you then. Yi Qingtang kept the revolving soul orb. Don't mention about it. This is what I should do. I can't use this item for now, and there's no use leaving it aside. The Blood Moon Sect elder was elated when he saw Yi Qingtang keeping the revolving soul orb. This revolving soul orb was indeed as powerful as what he said, but it had a disadvantage. The revolving soul orb would absorb the essence in the world continuously, and if the essence was not absorbed by someone for a long time, the essence would exceed the revolving soul orb's capacity and explode. The Blood Moon Sect elder narrowed his eyes slightly and hid away the sly look in his eyes. He was destined to be unable to kill Yi Qingtang right now because of the contract between them, but if she died from the revolving soul orb's explosion, it would be completely unrelated to him. When she died, the contract would naturally be nullified, and he could regain his freedom. The Blood Moon Sect elder planned out everything well in his heart, though his face did not reveal anything. Get rid of your corpse. You're Zhou Chu from now on, Yi Qingtang said. Your corpse. The Blood Moon Sect elder's lips twitched but still obediently picked up his dried corpse and absorbed all the remaining energy. This dried corpse had been in existence for thousands of years, and it was the Blood Moon Sect elder's power which allowed the corpse to maintain its current appearance. Now that it lost its very last remnants of energy, the corpse quickly turned into ash and vanished along with the wind. Yi Qingtang nodded at the sight and led the Blood Moon Sect elder towards the square where the disciples were locked up at. As she walked, she added on, "Get rid of the blood fog around the city. You cannot touch those people in the square anymore." The Blood Moon Sect elder accepted the orders in obedience but sneered internally. "I'll let you order me around now. When that revolving soul orb explodes." In the square, the people in despair looked at the red light that filled the sky, and the shadow of death remained in their eyes. Qin Huan sat in the cage distraughtly as he pulled his hair. Regret was written all over his face. "I should not have brought junior sister Yi here. It's all my fault. I brought harm onto her." At that moment, Qin Huan was extremely regretful. Had he known how dangerous this trip was, he would definitely not agree to bring Yi Qingtang along. It was ultimately too late now. Dai Chengming sighed quietly. Under such circumstances, all of them had become lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Dai Chengming glanced across the bloody scene around him, but his eyes were suddenly attracted by two figures not far away. He suddenly widened his eyes and patted the regretful Qin Huan. "Junior brother Qin, take a look quickly." "Who is that?" Qin Huan looked up with a weary expression but was utterly stunned from the sight. He rushed forward and clutched on the metal cage tightly. Shock filled his eyes when he saw the figure that was nearing them. "Junior sister Yi." Chapter 280. Yi Qingtang and the emotionless Zhou Chu walked into the square together. Not just Qin Huan but other Xianling sect disciples were all dumbfounded. What was this situation? How did the two of them actually return? The two people that were originally thought to be definitely dead walked into everyone's line of sight. Qin Huan returned to his senses and spoke hurriedly. "Junior sister Yi, leave now. That bastard elder might return again." Qin Huan's face was full of worry. However, Yi Qingtang could not help but laugh at his words. She secretly peered at the bastard elder beside her from the corner of her eyes and saw that the Blood Moon Sect elder's expression was completely dark. If not for Yi Qingtang's warning to not touch these people, he would have already dug Qin Huan's heart out and bit it into pieces. "Who is a bastard? Your entire family is filled with bastards." Yi Qingtang held her laughter back and walked to the metal cage with a serious expression. Hacking the cage door with her sword, she said, "The Blood Moon Sect elder left already. Don't worry, senior brothers. I think he will not be back for a while." Everyone was stunned. "Left already?" Qin Huan repeated, dumbfounded. I don't know why either, but he suddenly left." Yi Qingtang was lazy to come up with a reason. Anyway, the Blood Moon Sect was extremely mysterious to everyone, and it never left any trace in their movements. Thus, she could get away with a random excuse. The frightened Xianling sect disciples fell into a trance as they looked at the open cage. Why did it leave just like that? After releasing all her senior brothers, Yi Qingtang headed to another cage. The other cages in the square were long empty, and the ground was piled with corpses. Only in that cage sat a young boy whose eyes were swollen from crying. He sat there absent-mindedly and seemed to have no more tears left to cry. His hollow eyes looked at the dead body of his senior brother which laid in his hands, and he did not sense any movement in his surrounding. When Yi Qingtang saw that young teen from Wind Moon sect, she could not help but lament internally. She walked forward and slashed the cage. Your senior brother protected you with his life not because he wants to see you being defeated like this, Yi Qingtang said and stood beside the youth. The young teen suddenly lifted his head up, and his teary eyes looked at Yi Qingtang in confusion. He knew that the Blood Moon sect elder targeted him just now, but it was because of this girl's sudden appearance which attracted the Blood Moon sect elder's appearance, thus allowing him to escape a calamity. Senior brother, the boy just said something, but tears fell uncontrollably. Tears stained his small face, and this really made one feel sorry. Yi Qingtang handed the sword in her hand to the young teen. Live on well. You can only avenge your senior brother by making yourself even more powerful. The Blood Moon sect elder who was standing aside felt the corners of his lips twitch. The boy looked at the sword that he lost and then looked down at his senior brother's corpse. He sniffed, wiped away his tears, and stretched a hand out to grab the sword. I must avenge senior brother. I will personally chop off that old demon's head. The old demon. In just a short while, the Blood Moon sect elder became both a bastard and an old demon, and this was probably way more than the number of curses he heard in thousands of years. Everyone escaped from the cage and regained freedom, but no one was able to relax in this bloody scene. Chapter 281. The blood fog that initially enveloped Deer City began to disappear slowly. It was then that everyone faintly felt that there was a way out. Without daring to delay at all, they quickly seized this time to rush out to the city gate. Qin Huan wiped the cold sweat on his face away. Glancing at the Blood Moon sect who was following behind Yi Qingtang, he uttered in annoyance. Why did this rascal Zhou Chu return as well? Wasn't he dragged away by the zombies just now? I thought he would definitely be slaughtered by the Blood Moon sect elder. Honestly speaking, Qin Huan really wished for such a lousy person like Zhou Chu to just die early. Yi Qingtang looked at the Blood Moon sect elder, whose face was as black as the base of a pot, and laughed in her heart, though she maintained a calm expression on her face. He was able to survive only because the Blood Moon sect elder left hurriedly. Qin Huan did not think much to it as well. Everyone dashed towards the city gate of Deer City, but before they reached the city gate, they suddenly saw a group of people rushing into the city loudly. Almost instantly, everyone's hair stood on ends. Could it be that the Blood Moon sect elder returned with his underlings? Swiftly, the group of people entered Deer City, and everyone sighed in relief when they had a clear look of the incoming people. There were over 10 people wearing different sect uniforms, and the people in the lead were 6 elderlies with gray hair. And among the 6 elderlies, 2 of them were wearing Xianling sect clothes that represented the status of an elder. It's the inner sect elders. Happiness filled Dai Changming when he saw the group of people. Elders from different sects were rushing over with wardens and disciples. Xianling sect disciples greet 2 elders. Dai Changming immediately led his junior brothers and sisters in greeting the elders. It should be known that outer sect disciples like them did not have any chance of meeting the inner sect elders. These 2 elders were probably investigating in the area and rushed over because of the signal that Yi Qingtang sent out previously. The elders who came along with the others were Elder Lin of the Inner Sect's Sword faction and Elder Qin of the Inner Sect's Array faction. Other than them, elders from Wind Moon sect and other sects hurried there as well. When the impressive group of people entered Deer City, they felt an aura that had not completely dissipated. What exactly happened? Elder Lin frowned slightly at the disciples who knelt before him. Elder Qin and he brought a team to investigate in the vicinity, suddenly sensed the signal, and thus hurried over with sect elders who were searching in the same area. Elder, we encountered a Blood Moon sect elder in Deer City, Dai Changming said. Blood Moon sect elder. Everyone had a shocked look on their faces after hearing him. Recently, disciples from various sects disappeared unknowingly. The elders have investigated for a long time but never found a clue. The places they went to were all deserted, yet unexpectedly, Dai Changming and the rest were actually able to find a clue. However, what surprised them even more was that it had to do with the Blood Moon sect. "What is the situation?" Elder Qin asked. Dai Changming immediately recounted everything that happened in Deer City. Right after, a few elders brought some people and headed to the square. The elders' faces turned white instantly when greeted with the bloody scene. They were afraid that the recent disappearances of the various sects' disciples were all related to the Blood Moon sect. Countless corpses of sect disciples laid in the entire square. When the Wind Moon sect elder saw the corpse of that inner sect disciple, his face paled, and he shut his eyes in pain. "Master," the young teen from Wind Moon sect looked at his master with red, puffy eyes. Chapter 282. The expressions of the two Xianling sect elders were rather ugly as they did not expect the matter to be related to the Blood Moon sect. The Blood Moon sect had been exterminated for thousands of years. "I really never thought that there would be traces of resurrection." Elder Lin's brows were tightly furrowed. He looked at the group, and his eyes eventually fell on Yi Qingtang. "Did you see the Blood Moon sect elder leave with your own eyes?" Yi Qingtang looked up, and a cold expression darted across her eyes when she made eye contact with the domineering Elder Lin. Elder Lin, they really had a fate. In her previous life, it was Elder Lin from the inner sect's sword faction who secretly went after her life after discovering her heart of the demon god, and senior brother Yun died in Elder Lin's hands in order to protect her. Yi Qingtang knew that there would ultimately be a day where she would meet with Elder Lin again after entering Xianling sect, but meeting him now, the desire to murder him in her intensified. If not for Elder Lin back then, there would have been no way the world would know that the heart of the demon god was in Yi Qingtang's body. Yi Qingtang would not have ended up in the distressing situation of being hunted down by everyone, and Yun Shu would not have died. It could be said that Elder Lin was the culprit who caused Yi Qingtang to be hunted down for her life by everyone in her previous life. Her eyes blazed with hatred when she came face to face with her enemy, but Yi Qingtang was aware that she was not Elder Lin's opponent right now. She could only hide away the coldness in her eyes, look down and reply. "Yes, I witnessed the Blood Moon sect elder leaving. Senior brother Zhou saw it as well." Then Yi Qingtang looked at the Blood Moon sect elder who became Zhou Chu. "Yes, I saw it as well," said the Blood Moon sect elder calmly. Elder Lin exchanged a look with Elder Qin. The incident today was the only clue they found, and it resolved the mystery about the disappearance of the disciples. However, it had to do with the Blood Moon sect, and it was by no means a trivial matter. It is good that everyone is safe. You all had a big shock. Once you all return to the sect, report everything you saw today in detail so it will be easier to organize the information. Elder Qin comforted the frightened disciples. Being able to escape safely after encountering someone of a Blood Moon sect elder status was simply an unimaginable feat. Xianling sect did not suffer many losses this time. Apart from the death of one person, other disciples were not injured. Rather, there were heavy casualties for other sects, and Wind Moon sect even lost a highly talented inner sect disciple. At that thought, Elder Qin could not help but look at Yi Qingtang from his side. According to what Dai Changming said previously, a major reason that accounted for their small loss was that Yi Qingtang diverted the Blood Moon sect elders' attention. Otherwise, not just Xianling sect disciples but even that last surviving teen from Wind Moon sect would be buried here. As early as during the sect assessment, Elder Qin had already thought rather highly of this new disciple, and now he was even more satisfied. Elder Lin noticed the look of approval in Elder Qin's eyes as well, but there was no trace of a smile on his face. After glancing past Yi Qingtang, he frowned slightly. He could faintly feel a strange aura from Yi Qingtang's body. Yi Qingtang sensed Elder Lin's gaze, and her heart skipped a beat. She looked down calmly, though her attention landed on the space ring on her finger. The revolving soul orb that the Blood Moon sect elder gave her just now was currently stored in the space ring. This space ring was of low quality and was simply unable to conceal the aura of the revolving soul orb. Looking at Elder Lin's reaction, she realized that he must have sensed something. Chapter 283. Yi Qingtang frowned slightly. She could not keep this revolving soul orb anymore, and if the sect elders found out about it, it would be even harder for her to explain. Then, Yi Qingtang suddenly looked up and walked forward. "I have something to report." Elder Lin frowned while Elder Qin asked with a smile, "Is there anything?" Under everyone's gaze, Yi Qingtang immediately took out the revolving soul orb from her space ring. The Blood Moon Sect elder dropped this item when he left. "I thought that this may be related to the Blood Moon Sect." The moment the revolving soul orb was taken out, all the elders from different sects were attracted to it instantly. "This is the revolving soul orb?" A Wind Moon Sect elder was taken aback as shock filled his eyes. The revolving soul orb was an extremely superior enchanted cultivation armament. It rarely appeared in sects, and only Wind Moon Sect had similar enchanted armament, of which was used to guard the sect. When the Blood Moon Sect was still in existence, its members were so powerful that ordinary sect disciples could not even be compared to them, causing everyone to bristle with anger. This power was mainly because the Blood Moon Sect possessed plenty of formidable enchanted armaments which others could not even imagine. And the revolving soul orb was one of the enchanted armaments. Not just the Wind Moon Sect elder, but all the elders from different sects were shocked when they saw the revolving soul orb. Elder Lin and Elder Qin widened their eyes. "This item was dropped by the Blood Moon Sect elder?" Elder Lin asked with a serious expression. Yi Qingtang replied, "Yes." Elder Qin ran a hand through his beard and raised a brow. Legend has it that the revolving soul orb is an enchanted armament at the state of martial qi level 2 and was also a mystical artifact that could allow someone at the peak of martial qi level 2 to break through to martial qi level 3. This item is extremely rare, and only the Blood Moon Sect could refine it. It should be right. Then, an infatuated expression emerged in the eyes of both Elder Qin and Elder Lin. Both of them were at the late stage of martial qi level 2 and were only a tiny gap away from the peak. If they could obtain this item, there was an opportunity for them to enter the martial qi level 3 state. Although martial qi level 3 and martial qi level 2 were only a grade apart, there was a world of differences between these two. The emotions of both elders fell into Yi Qingtang's eyes. Her lips curled up into a smile as a thought suddenly came to her. "I will present this item to the elders and hope that more clues regarding the Blood Moon Sect can be found using this item." Then Yi Qingtang walked to stand in front of the elders with the revolving soul orb in her hands. The Blood Moon Sect elder was instantly dumbfounded. At that instant, there was greed in both Elder Lin and Elder Qin's eyes. They were not short of treasures given their high statues of an inner sect elder, but the revolving soul orb was such a precious item that was ultimately beyond their reach. Elder Lin took a deep breath quietly and lifted his chin while glancing at Elder Qin from the corner of his eyes. He was the elder of Xianling Sect's sword faction and had the highest position among the inner sect elders. Moreover, Yi Qingtang was a disciple in the outer sect sword faction, and it was logical that the revolving soul orb should definitely end up in his possession. Elder Qin realized this point as well, and his eyes revealed his slight disappointment. Had he known things would play out this way, he would have asked the outer sect elder to get in touch with Yi Qingtang since he thought very highly of her from the start anyway. But now, it was too late. Meanwhile, the elders from other sects had a gloomy expression, and their faces turned pale in anger as they looked at the revolving soul orb in Yi Qingtang's hand. Their disciples and Xianling Sect's disciples both encountered the Blood Moon Sect elder, but why was it that their disciples did not have such good luck? Not only did they not pick up such a precious treasure, they even lost their lives instead. It was seriously infuriating. Chapter 284. And just when Elder Lin confidently thought that Yi Qingtang would hand the revolving soul orb to him without a doubt, Yi Qingtang changed her direction slightly and handed it straight in front of Elder Qin. "Please accept this item, Elder." Elder Qin was taken aback, and delight flashed across his eyes. He stretched his hand out to take the revolving soul orb, and a smile bloomed on his face. Sure. What a promising student who is worth teaching. I will definitely keep this item well. Yi Qingtang, you made a huge contribution this time. The sect will definitely reward you handsomely. Never would Elder Qin have thought that such a blessing would happen to him, and he laughed brightly. Elder Lin, who was putting on a front, felt the arrogance on his face disappear completely. He glared at Yi Qingtang, who gave the revolving soul orb to Elder Qin, as though he was going to devour her alive. He never expected Yi Qingtang to actually present the revolving soul orb to Elder Qin. This was simply a slap in his face. Elder Qin glanced at Elder Lin with a proud expression and showered Yi Qingtang with compliments. Yi Qingtang stood there humbly and internally scoffed when she saw Elder Lin going green in the face from the corner of her eyes. On the other hand, the Blood Moon Sect elder's lips twitched when he witnessed Yi Qingtang handing the revolving soul orb into Elder Qin's hands. The elders from other sects were extremely envious but could not do anything about it as well. They secretly badmouthed Elder Qin for having dumb luck, as Xianling's sect did not have many casualties, and he even obtained a treasure without doing anything. The Xianling sect disciples also had envious expressions on their faces, but they were envious of Yi Qingtang, who picked up the revolving soul orb, and not Elder Qin. Judging from the rare excitement of all the elders, it was easy to realize how precious that treasure was. Yi Qingtang really made a huge contribution this time, and there would probably be many rewards waiting for her once she returned to the sect. Elder Qin smiled blissfully, but Elder Lin pulled a long face. After searching Deer City for another round and ensuring that there was no trace of the Blood Moon Sect elder, the sects finally returned. Before leaving, the teen from Wind Moon Sect suddenly found Yi Qingtang. He bowed to her and expressed his gratitude before leaving with his master. Elder Qin and Elder Lin led the group back. Yi Qingtang and the rest were considered to have completed this mission and returned to the sect immediately. Qin Huan was very puzzled over why Yi Qingtang gave the item to the elder of the inner sect array faction. You foolish girl. Elder Lin is then the elder of the inner sect sword faction. Why didn't you give the item to him? Yi Qingtang chuckled. I like it. Qin Huan remained silent. Despite meeting with danger, everyone was able to return safely and was thankful to Yi Qingtang for diverting the Blood Moon Sect elder's attention. When they returned to the sect, Dai Changming headed straight to submit the mission. Everyone bade their goodbyes and returned to take a required rest after suffering a huge fright. The Blood Moon Sect elder looked at the sect disciples who walked about the sect as though he saw an infinite surge of spirit energy waiting right before him for him to obtain. Yi Qingtang sensed the Blood Moon Sect elder's gaze and warned, if you don't want your identity to be exposed, you better not do anything funny. The Blood Moon Sect elder immediately put on a loyal and honest look. That's a given. Yi Qingtang cast him a look skeptically. As Yi Qingtang was about to return to the dorm, a commotion occurred outside the sect, and a faint smell of blood spread in the air. Chapter 285, Committing Murder to Snatch a Treasure 1. This smell of blood is so aromatic. The Blood Moon Sect elder was indulged in the bloody smell, which was rich with spirit energy. Yi Qingtang rolled her eyes at him and headed out to find out what happened. However, when Yi Qingtang scanned the situation, she suddenly saw a terribly battered figure which caused her mind to explode. Outside Xianling's sect, Yun Shu, who was covered in blood, collapsed on the clouds with feeble breathing. A large amount of blood gushed out from his body and stained the clouds beneath his body. All color was lost from his good-looking face, leaving a complexion as pale as a sheet of paper. Senior brother Yun. Yi Qingtang, alarmed, dashed out of the sect immediately. A group of disciples surrounded and looked at the miserable Yun Shu in confusion. Yi Qingtang hurried to Yun Shu's side and held Yun Shu up. Yun Shu looked up with great effort, and when he saw Yi Qingtang, his body trembled slightly. He suddenly clutched onto Yi Qingtang tightly. Junior sister Yi? Senior brother Yun, what happened to you? Who injured you? Yi Qingtang's eyebrows were tightly furrowed. Lu Xiu, junior sister Yi. He injured me, in order to snatch my Shangyue fire tripod, Yun Shu said strenuously as though every word was squeezed out from his throat. Shock filled Yi Qingtang's eyes. Lu Xiuwen. Yun Shu already had no energy left and passed out after forcing this sentence out of his mouth. Yi Qingtang looked at the long trail of blood behind Yun Shu and did not dare to imagine how Yun Shu crawled back to Xianling's sect with such heavy injuries. The bright red blood stain pierced her eyes. "Senior brother Yun, I will not let Lu Xiuwen off. Don't worry." Yi Qingtang carried Yun Shu and rushed into the sect with the Blood Moon sect elder following right after. In her previous life, Yi Qingtang only knew that Lu Xiuwen was the one who revealed her secret regarding the heart of the demon god, yet it turned out that he actually harmed Yun Shu secretly as well. It seemed that Yun Shu was so wretched in his previous life exactly because of Lu Xiuwen's murderous schemes. Yi Qingtang had heard of the Shangyue fire tripod that Yun Shu mentioned earlier. That was the treasure that he happened to obtain in the previous mission. It could increase one's cultivation speed and was extremely rare, and Yi Qingtang was happy for him as well. Yet, unexpectedly, this Fengyue fire tripod actually caused him to meet with a fatal disaster. Yi Qingtang swiftly sent Yun Shu to the physician, who was also stunned to see Yun Shu's injuries and quickly treated him. As the blood-stained clothes were disrobed from Yun Shu, a deep cut on his chest of which his bones could be seen was revealed. An intense murderous expression flashed across Yi Qingtang's eyes. The cut on Yun Shu's chest was extremely deep and was less than a finger away from his heart. If the cut was just a little deeper, Yun Shu would have lost his life already. The news of Yun Shu's severe injuries spread throughout the entire outer sect rapidly. It was then that Yi Qingtang realized that Yun Shu was out on a mission with a group of people including Lu Xiuwen and Su Wan. However, the group had already returned to the sect to submit their mission 2 days ago and even reported that Yun Shu met with a mishap in the mission. Now that Yun Shu suddenly returned, there was indeed a huge stir, and the warden of the disciplinary hall immediately ordered for Yun Shu to be brought over after hearing what Yun Shu said before he fainted. Chapter 286. Although Yun Shu did regain consciousness after the emergency treatment, he was still in a very bad condition. His body was so weak that he could not even stand still, and his hands were impaired from using them to crawl back to the sect such that it would be extremely strenuous for him to wield a sword in the future. The physician treated Yun Shu while sighing in pity at the same time. "Physician, how are senior brother Yun's injuries?" Yi Qingtang asked with a frown. The physician sighed. "The wound on his chest is very deep, but it is fortunate that his heart was not affected, and his life is not in danger." However, the physician held his words back and only continued after a while. "His injuries have been dragged on for too long. He probably crawled all the way back to the sect, and there are too many wounds all over. His knee joints and hands are severely wounded and too much blood was lost. This would implicate his spirit root is damaged, and in the future." The physician did not finish his sentence and merely shook his head regretfully. Yun Shu was born with good natural endowments, and if he had not met with this accident, he definitely would have achieved many things in the future. However, there were numerous injuries this time. There might be many effects even after he recovered. Thus, he might not progress much in the future. It was really a pity. Yi Qingtang clenched her fists tightly and frowned. This was how the senior brother Yun in her previous life fell into a slump. The once talented youth who had a bright future ahead of him was now destroyed by Lu Xiuwen. "Junior sister Yi, I want to go. I want to unveil." Lu Xiuwen's disgusting face. In front of everyone, Yun Shu said with difficulty as he clenched his teeth. For the first time, there was hatred in his warm eyes. He would never forget the moment when Lu Xiuwen attacked him. They were clearly brothers from the same sect, yet Lu Xiuwen wanted to kill Yun Shu just to snatch the Shangyue fire tripod from Yun Shu. Yi Qingtang frowned even more deeply as she looked at Yun Shu's current state. In her previous life, Yun Shu must have been through this as well. Otherwise, he would not have ended up like that. However, a few years later, Lu Xiuwen was still doing well in the outer sect and even became the best outer sect disciple. Evidently, Yun Shu's report failed. Lu Xiuwen definitely must have made full preparations long ago, and even if Yun Shu reported the case to the warden, there was no way he could ensure Lu Xiuwen to be convicted. "Please help me to bring my senior brother to the disciplinary hall." I will head there soon, Yi Qingtang said to the physician slowly and quietly took a piece of Yun Shu's blood-stained clothes from behind her. There was a flicker in the eyes of the Blood Moon Sect elder, who had been following beside Yi Qingtang, when he saw Yi Qingtang's actions. Seeing that Yi Qingtang took her leave, the Blood Moon Sect elder followed after her immediately. Yi Qingtang did not go to the disciplinary hall straight but instead headed for the dormitory that the new disciples were staying in. Many disciples were surrounded in the disciplinary hall, and the outer sect elder in charge of discipline frowned at the two disciples before him. Yun Shu, you said that Lu Xiuwen secretly attacked you and stole your Shangyue fire tripod when you were severely injured after you all finished your mission. Is this true? In the big hall of the disciplinary hall, the pale Yun Shu was standing with difficulty while being supported by another disciple. Blood seeped out from the bandage around his chest. His lips were so pale that there was no color at all, and his legs were trembling uncontrollably as his body was overly weak. Elder, everything I said is true. It was Lu Xiuwen who led me to a deserted area and suddenly attacked me. After severely injuring me, he snatched the Shangyue fire tripod away. Chapter 287. The warden frowned deeply, and he looked sternly at Lu Xiuwen who was standing beside Yun Shu with a relaxed expression. Lu Xiuwen, what do you have to say about this? Lu Xiuwen took a glimpse of Yun Shu's pale face from the corner of his eyes without emotion. I have never done such a thing. The warden said, when you all returned from the mission, it was reported that Yun Shu was met with a mishap. Now that Yun Shu is still alive and accused you of murder, how are you going to explain this? Lu Xiuwen replied. Half a month ago, junior brother Yun and I went out on a mission with the rest. We did not have any conflicts on the journey. I was with other teammates from the start to the end and did not have any chance to attack junior brother Yun. Junior brother Yun was lost from the group when we were killing the demonic beast. After the demonic beast was slaughtered, junior brother Yun was missing, and we searched the forest for a long time but only saw his blood-stained clothes, so we thought junior brother Yun was murdered. Then, Lu Xiuwen turned to look at the furious Yun Shu and said calmly, I do not understand why junior brother Yun would accuse me as his murderer as well. Please clear my name, warden. Lu Xiuwen spoke neither hurriedly nor slowly, and there was neither panic nor guilt in his tone. At that sight, the disciples surrounding outside the disciplinary hall could not help but start whispering. Yun Shu and Lu Xiuwen were the most gifted out of the new disciples, and their skills were around the same level. However, these two new talents were involved in this incident, and many were interested to watch on. Lu Xiuwen is born in the formidable Heavens Royals. What kind of treasures has he not seen before? He shouldn't go as far as to snatch a Shangyue fire tripod, right? What do you know? That Shangyue fire turpo is the best cultivation mystical artifact for Khanate level 9s. It can speed up one's cultivation rapidly. Who doesn't want it? There was originally a slight difference between Lu Xiuwen and Yun Shu's skills, and if one of them obtained the Shangyue fire tripod, that person would definitely be able to get way ahead of the other person. This item is, thus, obviously a treasure. The warden frowned slightly and said to Yun Shu, Yun Shu, you said that Lu Xiuwen deliberately led you away. Is there anyone who can testify for you? Yun Shu frowned. After thinking for a while, his eyes scanned through the crowd and saw Su Wan standing amongst the people. When Su Wan met with Yun Shu's eyes, her eyes flickered a little, and she pursed her lips. When Lu Xiuwen called me, an outer sect disciple, Su Wan, was nearby as well, Yun Shu said slowly. The warden pondered for a moment and called Su Wan up. The disciples were struck by a thought when they saw Su Wan going forward. In this period of time, Su Wan and Yun Shu were very close, and there were already rumors about both of them in the outer sect. Now that Yun Shu called Su Wan up to testify for him, everyone could not help but guess that Su Wan would definitely stand against Lu Xiuwen given her affection for Yun Shu. Su Wan greets warden, Su Wan said gently. The warden nodded. Did you see Lu Xiuwen and Yun Shu leaving together that day? Su Wan's lips were slightly pursed. She took a glance of Yun Shu's expectant face and looked back. After remaining silent for a while, she finally said, the battle was very intense at that time. I was focused on attacking the demonic beast, so I never took any notice of it. With that, everyone was stunned. Chapter 288. Don't Su Wan and Yun Shu have a thing for each other? Why did she say such a thing here? Since Su Wan said so, I think that Yun Shu's words most likely cannot be trusted. After all, junior sister Su has always adored Yun Shu, and if such a thing really happened, would junior sister Su deny it? Su Wan's words made many felt that Yun Shu was slandering Lu Xiaowen intentionally. Everyone knew of Su Wan and Yun Shu's relationship. If there truly were such a thing, Su Wan would definitely stand on Yun Shu's side. However, a hint of satisfaction flashed across Lu Xiaowen's eyes. Yun Shu widened his eyes in disbelief and looked at Su Wan, who was avoiding his eyes. Whatever he said earlier was not a lie. When Lu Xiaowen called him, he clearly exchanged a look with Su Wan, and she did see him leaving together with Lu Xiaowen. Why was it that, at this very moment, Su Wan denied everything? Yun Shu simply could not believe that Su Wan, who had always followed him throughout these days, would backstab him at this critical moment. Su Wan did not return Yun Shu's gaze and only looked down to avoid everything. She did witness Lu Xiaowen and Yun Shu leaving together, but so what? Yun Shu was already crippled now. While Lu Xiaowen, Su Wan looked up at Lu Xiaowen's back view, and her mind replayed the scene where Lu Xiaowen expressed his affection for her on their way back to the sect. Lu Xiaowen was a royal from the formidable Heavens Royals, and his identity was as prestigious as Yun Shu's. Now, Yun Shu had become disabled while Lu Xiaowen had a bright future ahead of him. Yun Shu stood rooted to the ground, dumbfounded. His last ray of hope was shattered the moment Su Wan spoke. A hint of laughter darted across Lu Xiaowen's eyes. Then, he looked at the pale Yun Shu and said, "Junior brother Yun, I know that you suffered a lot this time, and I am very upset as well, but I don't know why must you malign me like this?" Then, Lu Xiaowen showed a pained expression. "Lu Xiaowen, when did I malign you? How can you?" Yun Shu trembled in fury when he saw Lu Xiaowen's attitude, and blood flowed out from the cut that was not yet healed. Su Wan's words simply pushed Yun Shu into a bottomless abyss. No matter how he explained now, no one would believe him. Lu Xiaowen looked at the warden and added on, "Warden, all the disciples who participated in this mission can testify that I never left the group by myself." Then, those disciples who were standing aside nodded along. Yun Shu looked at the farce before his eyes and let out a bitter laugh. A drop of blood escaped his mouth as he shut his eyes in pain. The warden frowned slightly. Yun Shu had violated the sect rules by maligning Lu Xiaowen. "Yun Shu, what do you still have to say now?" Yun Shu shook his head slowly. Everyone was testifying for Lu Xiaowen, and no one would believe him at all no matter how he explained. Human or devil, he finally saw clearly. The warden announced coldly, "For maligning a fellow disciple in the sect, you are to be flogged 30 strokes. On the account that your injuries are severe, you are to head to the disciplinary hall by yourself to receive the punishment once you recover." "Yes," Yun Shu said with a bitter laugh. The smile in Lu Xiaowen's eyes deepened. "Warden, I have something to report." Suddenly, a beautiful female voice traveled into everyone's ears. Chapter 289. Everyone looked up instinctively and saw that Yi Qingtang was at disciplinary hall. Lu Xiaowen narrowed his eyes upon seeing Yi Qingtang. Yun Shu looked in confusion at Yi Qingtang, who suddenly arrived. "Are you here to say anything about Yun Shu's matter?" the warden asked. The warden's words reflected what many thought. While Yi Qingtang did not interact much with Yun Shu during this period of time, Yi Qingtang was still on good terms with him previously. Now that Yun Shu was in trouble, could it be that Yi Qingtang was here to help him? Lu Xiaowen swept his eyes across Yi Qingtang, though he was not at all bothered. Yi Qingtang never participated in the mission with them, so no matter what she said now, Yun Shu's fate would hardly change. However, senior brother Yun's matter? Yi Qingtang was slightly surprised. She scanned the disciplinary hall and could not help but laugh. "You are mistaken. I am not here to talk about senior brother Yun's matter. After all, my mission was different from theirs." How would I know anything that happened in their mission? Quite a number of disciples were taken aback by her words. She was not here to save Yunshu? The warden said, so what are you here for? Yi Qingtang slowly walked up, and when she reached the warden, she suddenly handed a sword in her hand to the warden. Warden, I picked up a sword on my way back to the sect. There is a Xianling sect symbol carved on it, and I thought that some senior brother must have lost it, so I brought it back together with me. I'm handing it to you to check if there are any clues so that the item can be returned to its original owner. Lu Ziyuan's eyes flickered when he saw that sword. The warden looked at the sword before him and took it over. When he drew out the sword, there was an obvious, large patch of dried blood stained on the shiny sword. The warden furrowed his eyebrows. Where did you pick up this sword at? In the vicinity of Beiyue Mountains. Yi Qingtang replied. With that said, Su Wan and the rest had a shocked expression. Was that not where Yunshu was on a mission at? Lu Ziyuan's expression became a little ugly. Beiyue Mountains? Why do I remember that the location of Lu Xiuwen and the rest's mission is around that area? A random disciple voiced from his side. Lu Ziyuan's expression instantly turned even uglier. Yi Qingtang scoffed in her heart. Catching on to what that disciple said, she looked at Lu Xiuwen and asked, oh? Could it be that this sword belongs to senior brother Lu then? Lu Xiuwen narrowed his eyes immediately and uttered coldly. Junior sister Yi, you should not speak carelessly. What evidence do you have to say that you picked up this sword at Beiyue Mountains and that this sword is mine? The warden frowned as well. Yi Qingtang, do you have any proof? Yi Qingtang looked up, and her eyes quietly fell on the Blood Moon sect elder, who was in the crowd. Senior brother Zhou should have seen this sword as well. She immediately darted the Blood Moon sect elder a look, signaling him to say something. The Blood Moon sect elder saw Yi Qingtang's eyes and pursed his lips. What had it got to do with him? Yi Qingtang narrowed her eyes slightly as her right hand casually held on the sword on her waist and drew it out a little. The Blood Moon sect elder felt a chill. He cursed in his heart and walked up rather unwillingly. Chapter 290. When Lu Xiuwen saw the Blood Moon sect elder who became Zhou Chu, a hint of laughter emerged in his eyes. This Yi Qingtang was really an idiot. Everyone knew about the enmity between Zhou Chu and Yi Qingtang. Plus, Zhou Chu obviously had an intention of cozying up to him on the arena previously. Calling Zhou Chu up right now would probably just be more of a hindrance than help. Then, Lu Xiuwen secretly sighed and said to the Blood Moon sect elder, it would be even better if senior brother Zhou was present. Please clear my name, senior brother Zhou. Under Yi Qingtang's threatening eyes, the Blood Moon sect elder nodded with a smile and said with an expression which read absolutely, no problem. Don't worry, junior brother Lu. I will definitely say the truth in all honesty. Lu Xiuwen nodded in satisfaction and glanced at Yi Qingtang with a cold laugh in his eyes. The Blood Moon sect elder walked up to the warden and said, Warden, I have something to report. Say. The warden uttered. After taking a look at the sword, the Blood Moon sect elder turned to look at Lu Xiuwen, who secretly gave him a nod. I indeed witnessed junior sister Yi picking this sword up in the area near Beiyue Mountains. Lu Ziyuan's expression immediately fell after hearing what the Blood Moon sect elder said. Then, the Blood Moon sect elder continued. I also saw junior brother Lu using this sword before. Lu Ziyuan's expression darkened instantly, and he frowned. Senior brother Zhou, don't speak carelessly. Then he cast a threatening look to the Blood Moon sect elder. The Blood Moon sect elder was simply unaffected. I'm not speaking carelessly. I did see you holding this sword before. Lu Ziyuan's expression turned ugly. On the other hand, Yi Qingtang deliberately looked at Lu Xiuwen in surprise. This sword really belongs to senior brother Lu? But, the blood stain on this sword. The warden's expression changed, and he immediately summoned someone to compare the blood stain on that sword and Yunshu's blood. The results shocked everyone. The two blood samples were completely the same, and evidently, the blood on the sword belonged to Yunshu. When the results were revealed, Lu Ziyuan's expression became extremely ugly. He did attack Yunshu, but he did not use that sword at all. He clearly placed that sword in his room all this while and had never used it, But why was it that it was in Yi Qingtang's hands now? Lu Xiaowen really fell into a dire situation as his own sword was stained with Yun Shu's blood. Then, he said, "This sword is indeed mine. However, I already lost it 1 month ago, so I am really unaware of this matter." Unaware? Yi Qingtang suddenly laughed. She narrowed her eyes at Lu Xiaowen, who was trying hard to wash his hands off everything. That is really unusual then. Senior brother Lu, your sword is stained with senior brother Yun's blood, and senior brother Yun said that he was injured by you. I'm afraid there's something hidden in this matter. Lu Xiaowen glimpsed at Yi Qingtang and could not help but curse internally, though he did not show any expression on his face. All the disciples who went on the mission can testify for me that I did not bring this sword when I went out on the mission. The warden then interrogated other disciples, and the outcome was the same as what Lu Xiaowen said. Even Yun Shu could not help but frown as well. He was injured by Lu Xiaowen's sword, but it was completely not the one that Yi Qingtang handed to the warden. However, at that moment, Yun Shu was not foolish enough to speak up for Lu Xiaowen. Chapter 291. There were many discussions among the disciples, and the warden's expression turned solemn as well. If Lu Xiaowen really harmed Yun Shu, his offense would be serious, but using this sword as evidence was not sufficient. Yi Qingtang took in everyone's expression quietly, and her lips curled into a smile. She walked forward and said, "I think what senior brother Lu said should be real." Yi Qingtang's words surprised everyone. What was going on? Yi Qingtang actually spoke up for Lu Xiaowen? Lu Xiaowen was a little surprised as well, completely not understanding what Yi Qingtang was planning to do. Yi Qingtang smiled. "I believe that given senior brother Lu's character, he would not do such a despicable thing. If he really did it, wouldn't it bring shame to the entire formidable Heaven's Royals? Someone who could do such a lowly thing that's worse than pigs or dogs is definitely a scoundrel." Although Yi Qingtang's words were helping Lu Xiaowen, they sounded piercing to him. Despicable? Bring shame to the formidable Heaven's Royals? Worse than pigs or dogs? If not for the fact that it was unsuitable to argue right now, Lu Xiaowen really wanted to rip Yi Qingtang's mouth apart. That scumbag was simply using this opportunity to criticize him. Yet, even if he knew that, Lu Xiaowen could only suffer in silence. You're reading on BOXNOVL. Come thanks. Senior brother Lu previously said that he did not lose this sword, and given senior brother Yun's character, I believe that he will not malign a fellow disciple. Thus, it is very possible that someone wanted to sow discord. After stealing senior brother Lu's sword, the person pretended to be senior brother Lu, deliberately tricked senior brother Yun, and took the chance to attack him. Ultimately, senior brother Lu should be innocent. Yi Qingtang behaved contrary to her usual attitude towards Lu Xiaowen as she helped Lu Xiaowen to prove his innocence, which was beyond everyone's expectations. Lu Xiaowen, whose face was pale, was also worried that he would be accountable for the matter regarding the sword and could only go along with Yi Qingtang. What junior sister Yi said is definitely the case. There must be some bastard who deliberately sowed discord between junior brother Yun and me by pretending to be me and injuring junior brother Yun. This sword must have been stolen by that bastard. The warden frowned and nodded after thinking that it made sense. Who knew? However, Yi Qingtang suddenly added on. Although senior brother Lu is not really related to this incident, it was his sword that hurt senior brother Yun. He did not keep an eye on his items well and let others have a chance to steal it. If others did not pretend to be senior brother Lu, senior brother Yun would not have fallen for it so easily. So, although senior brother Lu is not the murderer, he is still responsible for the crime. Lu Xiaowen was shocked, and he glared at Yi Qingtang instantly. Everything she said previously was for this moment. Although he knew that he fell for Yi Qingtang's scheme, things had already reached this point, and Lu Xiaowen could only clench his teeth. Indeed. It is all because of me that junior brother Yun suffered such a disaster. I am willing to be punished. The warden said, Lu Xiaowen did not safe keep his items well and caused his weapon to fall in others' hands. Although you did not personally injure Yun Shu, he was attacked using your weapon. You're exempted from the death penalty but not from punishment. You are to be flogged 50 strokes. This small punishment will stop you from making even bigger mistakes in the future. As fellow disciples in the same sect, you all should support each other and not let outsiders have a chance to exploit any of your flaws. Once the warden finished his sentence, Lu Ziyuan's face turned miserably pale immediately. 50 strokes of flogging that could tear one's skin and flesh. However, up to that point, he could only clench his teeth and swallow this ill consequence. Chapter 292. Lu Xiuwen had to receive his punishment right there and then. 2 disciples walked into the hall, each holding a rod of discipline that was 2 meters long and 10 fingers wide. Lu Xiuwen was pressed down on the floor, and the 2 rods hit his bottom unsparingly. Suddenly, a loud clack was heard. The disciplinary hall was dead silent. Everyone widened their eyes and stared as the rod of discipline landed. Lu Ziyuan's good-looking face paled from the pain, and cold sweat ran down his face. Su Wan, who was standing aside, was so shocked by the sound of flesh being torn that she turned pale. She tugged onto the ends of her clothes nervously. Even the strongest and toughest fist faction disciple would not be able to get out of bed for 2 to 3 months after being flogged 50 strokes. While Lu Ziyuan's natural endowments were pretty good, the time he spent on cultivation was still short. After just 20 strokes, the skin and flesh on his bottom were already torn, and the area was dripping with blood. Every time the blood-stained rod landed, blood spattered everywhere and dripped onto the floor. It was a horrifying sight. Yi Qingtang looked on coldly. There was no emotion in her eyes as she watched Lu Ziyuan's face turning purple from being beaten. That excruciating pain caused Lu Ziyuan's mind to buzz. As the prince of the formidable Heavens Royals, he had never suffered such a violent beating. His veins popped out as cold sweat trickled down continuously. His pale lips were bleeding from his bite. Looking up furiously, he glared at Yi Qingtang, who was faintly smiling with hatred. If Yi Qingtang had not suddenly appeared, he would not need to suffer such humiliation in public. 50 strokes were finished, and Lu Ziyuan's bottom was already terribly battered. Blood covered the floor, and his legs that were soaked with blood could not stop trembling. Senior brother Lu, this is also a lesson learned. In the future, you must definitely keep a close eye on your belongings and not let anyone have an opportunity to exploit your inadequacy to their advantage. Yi Qingtang looked at the pale Lu Xiuwen with a seeming smile. Lu Ziyuan's teeth chattered due to the pain. Scowling at Yi Qingtang, he said in a raspy voice, "I will definitely remember this lesson for life." The toughest time had already passed. He would definitely not let Yi Qingtang off easily. The days were still long, and he would definitely have a chance to torture her. He would not suffer this 50 strokes of flogging for nothing. There was already a conclusion to the incident today, and the Shangyue fire tripod was already in his hands. Once he recovered, he would use that Shangyue fire tripod to cultivate for a period of time and would definitely become the best in Xianling sect's outer sect. Although he suffered, it was worth it. Yi Qingtang straightened herself and suddenly turned to the warden, who was seated in the center of the hall. "Warden, Senior Brother Lu is ultimately not the murderer, and now that Senior Brother Lu has already received his punishment, it should be enough. However, the real villain is the murderer who injured Senior Brother Yun." Once Yi Qingtang said that, Lu Xiuwen, who was paralyzed on the floor, was shocked. He faintly sensed that Yi Qingtang definitely had another move at the back. Indeed, such a scourge must not be connived in the outer sect. The warden nodded. A hint of laughter passed Yi Qingtang's eyes. Since this person could steal Senior Brother Lu's sword and attack Senior Brother Yun during the mission, it must be a new disciple who participated in that mission. The Shangyue fire tripod that was stolen away must be hidden by that person. Please order people to search the rooms and space rings of all the disciples who took part in this mission. I believe the location of where the item is hidden in will be found very quickly. Once found, the identity of the murderer would naturally be revealed. Chapter 293. Yi Qingtang's words struck Lu Ziyuan's mind like a bolt of lightning. Lu Xiuwen looked up in disbelief and glared at Yi Qingtang. His eyes were full of hatred as though he wanted to swallow her down alive. The Shangyue fire tripod was hidden in his room. If Yi Qingtang requested the warden to conduct a search right now, would he not? Lu Xiaowen broke out in a cold sweat instantly, and the luck he previously felt vanished into thin air. Once the Shangyue fire tripod was found to be hidden in his room, things would not be as simple as being flogged 50 strokes. He might not even be able to enter Xianling's sect for the rest of his life anymore. At that instant, Lu Xiaowen finally realized what Yi Qingtang was plotting when she said those words previously. She was clearing his name on the surface, but in reality, she was making him pay back in his own coin by slowly leading him to limit the scope of the murderer to the disciples who participated in this mission. He would not be able to keep the Shangyue fire tripod anymore, and he suffered this 50 strokes for nothing. Lu Xiaowen had never hated someone this much. At that very instant, he really wished he could tear Yi Qingtang into pieces. I will send people to investigate immediately. This matter will end here for now. If the murderer is found, he will definitely be punished severely, the warden ordered. After watching the drama and being shocked by the bloody 50 strokes of flogging, the disciples did not dare to speak further and quickly dispersed. Lu Xiaowen was carried away by a few disciples, and before he left, he glared at Yi Qingtang resentfully as though his eyes were soaked in poison. Yi Qingtang simply could not be bothered with Lu Xiaowen and immediately walked to Yun Shu's side to support him. Junior sister Yi, Yun Shu grasped Yi Qingtang's wrist tightly. Agitation filled his eyes. He was very aware that if not for Yi Qingtang's timely appearance, not only would he not be able to punish Lu Xiaowen for his crime, he would even be accused of maligning a fellow disciple instead. Yi Qingtang chuckled. Since others were present, she did not say anything and only helped Yun Shu out. Once they exited the disciplinary hall, Yun Shu could not conceal his gratitude anymore. Junior sister Yi, thank you for standing up for me today. If not for you, I'm afraid, Yi Qingtang shook her head. Senior brother Yun, there's no need for formalities between us. I am clear of what Lu Xiaowen did, but it's a pity that there is no concrete evidence for the warden to convict him, and I could only use wits to resolve your hatred temporarily. Yun Shu laughed bitterly. I really did not expect Lu Xiaowen to be so vicious and have such wild ambitions. I am to blame for not being able to see his true colors. But, where did you pick up the sword that you took out just now? I've never seen Lu Xiaowen use it before. Yi Qingtang scanned her surroundings, and after ensuring that there was no outsider present, she said softly, I didn't even pick up that sword. I went to Lu Ziyuan's room to steal it before I went to the disciplinary hall. Yun Shu was stunned. Steal? Yi Qingtang nodded. Lu Xiaowen must have been certain enough to dare to attack you. I know that there's no way you could win him in the disciplinary hall, so I made a trip to his room first. The blood on it was smeared using your blood-stained clothes as well. Yun Shu was completely dumbfounded. Never had he thought that Yi Qingtang would be so bold and detailed to set up this trap for Lu Xiaowen to fall in. Chapter 294 Senior Brother Yun. Don't worry. I will not let Lu Xiaowen off so easily. I will definitely make him personally return the Shangyue fire tripod that he stole. Yi Qingtang narrowed her eyes, which turned cold. At this point, Yun Shu finally realized how complicated Yi Qingtang's plan was. Ultimately, leading the warden to order a search would definitely off Lu Ziyuan's last glimmer of hope in keeping the Shangyue fire tripod. Yun Shu was extremely grateful to Yi Qingtang. If he was able to have the Shangyue fire tripod back, his future could, perhaps, be saved. After walking Yun Shu back, Yi Qingtang then returned to her room. Su Wan was also in the room at that time. When she saw Yi Qingtang, her eyes could not help but avert away. While Yi Qingtang did not say anything, Su Wan felt like she was sitting on pins and needles. Just a while later, she immediately left the room. Yi Qingtang saw how Su Wan left in a flurry and scoffed internally. She walked into the room and touched the silver wolf's fur, bearing this grudge in her heart. Regardless of Lu Xiaowen or the betrayer Su Wan, she would not let any off. You're back, junior sister Yi? Lin Long could not hold back her smile when she saw Yi Qingtang. Yi Qingtang said, How do you feel, senior sister Lin? I've recovered a lot. Lin Long chuckled and asked, What happened just now? I saw that junior sister Sue's expression was not too good when she returned, and she turned even paler when you returned. Could it be that there's a conflict between you two? Lin Long did not have any good impressions of Su Wan. Yi Qingtang scoffed. Conflict? More like she has something to hide. Su Wan always clung onto Yun Shu eagerly and guarded against Yi Qingtang like the way one guarded against a thief. But when something happened to Yun Shu, Su Wan jumped into Lu Ziyuan's embrace instead. Now, Yi Qingtang finally realized why she heard rumors about Su Wan and Lu Xiuan everywhere when she entered the sect in her past life. It seemed, these two people must have gotten together after Yun Shu's accident. Yi Qingtang's heart turned even colder when she recalled Yun Shu's injuries. With her here in this life, she wanted to see how this adulterous pair could harm her senior brother Yun anymore. The disciplinary hall warden conducted a detailed search on the disciples who participated in the mission. Just a while after the search started, the stolen Shangyue fire tripod was secretly sent back into Yun Shu's room by the thief. The Shangyue fire tripod was returned to its owner, and the search was naturally concluded without any outcome. After recuperating for a few days, Yun Shu's condition gradually improved. On the other hand, Lu Xiuan stayed bedridden for days after being flogged 50 strokes and did not even have the energy to get out of bed, much less cultivate. As Yi Qingtang was appreciating the sight of Lu Xiuan falling victim to his own evil deeds, Elder Qin and Elder Lin returned with a group of people. Yi Qingtang just finished her cultivation and felt that her spirit root was going to make a breakthrough to the orange grade in a few days. Then, a disciple passed on a message. Elder Qin of the inner sect array faction summoned her over. Yi Qingtang's heart skipped a beat, and she immediately headed over. According to rules, ordinary outer sect disciples would not have any chance to meet the inner sect elders. Thus, the news of Yi Qingtang being summoned by the elder of the inner sect's sword faction attracted much attention. Yi Qingtang was led into the elder's hall by that disciple. The moment she stepped in, she was greeted with Elder Qin's smiling face. Disciple greets Elder Qin. Elder Qin was full of smiles. The more he saw Yi Qingtang, the more he favored her. When he thought of Elder Lin's expression, which was as ugly as though he ate dung, Elder Qin's mood turned even better. Chapter 295. Yi Qingtang, you played quite a huge role in the Deer City incident, and handing in the revolving soul orb is also a big contribution to the sect. Thus, the sect has decided to award you with 50,000 Xianming points, Elder Qin said with a smile. 50,000 Xianming points. Delight filled her when she heard this number. The hundreds of Xianming points she had on hand was already a huge asset in the outer sect. Thousands of Xianming points was simply a massive amount in the outer sect. Although Yi Qingtang was elated, she still did not forget her goal for heading to Deer City. She immediately suppressed her happiness and said, I am very happy to receive a reward from the sect. However, I have a request to make, and I am unsure whether you will approve of it. Oh, what is it? Elder Qin asked curiously. Yi Qingtang replied, I wish to participate in the inner sect assessment which takes place half a month from now. After Elder Qin heard Yi Qingtang's words, the smile on his face vanished in shock. You want to participate in the inner sect assessment which takes place half a month from now? Astonishment was written all over Elder Qin's face. Although he felt that Yi Qingtang had a good nature, she was ultimately only a new disciple with a red spirit root. She had only entered Xianling sect for a few months and probably did not have a solid foundation in the outer sect, yet she wanted to take part in Xianling sect's inner sect assessment? Was she insane? Yes. Yi Qingtang replied firmly. There was a huge difference between the inner and outer sect, and only by entering the inner sect would she be able to narrow her distance with Yiyu. Right before Zhou Chu died, he already pointed out that Yiyu colluded with Xianling sect's inner sect disciple, Ning Luo, to kill her. If she wasted any more time with the outer sect disciples, she would never be able to exact revenge on Yiyu. Elder frowned slightly and had a look of disapproval. Yi Qingtang, although your spirit root is inferior, you are rather intelligent. With your nature, you would still need to practice for years to enter the inner sect. Even if I make an exception and allow you to participate in the inner sect assessment now, there is probably not much meaning. Why don't you think about it again? Elder Qin really thought highly of Yi Qingtang, but he still thought it was risky to take such rash actions. However, Yi Qingtang shook her head insistently. I don't have any other requests. I only wish for a chance to participate in the assessment. Elder Qin never expected Yi Qingtang to be this stubborn and sighed helplessly. As a new disciple in the outer sect, you basically have no qualifications to take part in this year's inner sect assessment. If you really want to, there is also a way as well. However, you must use 30,000 Xianming points to exchange for a qualification to participate. You must think carefully. If you really want to enter the inner sect, you can wait another year, and you will not need to spend this 30,000 Xianming points. Elder Qin tried to persuade her kindly. 30,000 Xianming points was not a small amount. If Yi Qingtang was willing to give up on the inner sect assessment this time, she could save 30,000 Xianming points and use them to exchange for other items, as well as make great improvements in this 1 year. I have thought about it clearly. Please exchange it for me, Elder Qin. Elder Qin's lips twitched slightly. He had seen a stubborn person before but never one this stubborn. This girl is too willful. Forget it. Since you're so insistent on this, I will not persuade you anymore. However, since you wish to participate in this year's assessment, you must start preparing as quickly as possible. There is a spirit consonance river in the sect. If you really want to stake everything on this attempt, you can exchange some points for a few hours of usage rights in the spirit consonance river. It is rich in spirit energy, which can accelerate your cultivation and will be suitable for you. Chapter 296, Spirit Consonance River? Yi Qingtang did hear of this name in her previous lifetime. That was basically a land of spirit energy that only inner sect disciples could afford to use. The effects of cultivating in there were completely incomparable to cultivating in normal places. Even if one were to spend half a month cultivating in other ordinary places, it was impossible for the effect to be better than 2 hours of cultivation in the Spirit Consonance River. It was indeed a good spot to upgrade herself rapidly. Elder Qin saw that Yi Qingtang was tempted and added on immediately. However, the Spirit Consonance River is reserved for Xianling sect's inner sect disciples to use. If outer sect disciples wish to use the Spirit Consonance River, they must pay 5,000 Xianming points for every 2 hours of usage. You must think carefully. 5,000 Xianming points? Yi Qingtang was slightly shocked. It should be known that inner sect disciples only needed to pay 1,000 Xianming points for every 2 hours of usage, while outer sect disciples had to pay 5 times the amount. It could be said that the best conditions for cultivation were concentrated in the inner sect and were simply treasures that outer sect disciples could not think of. Yi Qingtang was still at Khanate level 7 and was 2 levels away from the peak in the outer sect, Khanate level 9. Her spirit root was about to improve, and if she could use the Spirit Consonance River to upgrade herself in this period of time, perhaps there was hope to successfully advance to Khanate level 9. To enter Xianling sect's inner sect, one had to be the top 3 disciples in the outer sect, and those 3 people were definitely at Khanate level 9. Yi Qingtang could only go all out if she wanted to enter Xianling sect's inner sect in the shortest time possible. I will head to the Spirit Consonance River to exchange for 6 hours of usage later, Yi Qingtang said. Elder Qin nodded slightly. Right after 50,000 Xianming points were gained, more than half of it was already spent. Subtracting the 15,000 Xianming points for the Spirit Consonance River, Yi Qingtang only had 5,000 Xianming points left. And once she entered the inner sect, her spending would become even bigger. However, Yi Qingtang would definitely not be thrifty on these matters. Earning Xianming points was to make oneself more powerful, and obviously, spending it would be useful. Thousands of Xianming points were drawn away immediately. Elder Qin's heart was complicated when he looked at Yi Qingtang. He always felt that Yi Qingtang was not like ordinary new disciples and had always been very steady. Yet, unexpectedly, she was actually very bold this time. The Xianming points have been drawn away. Half a month later, you can head for the inner sect assessment directly, Elder Qin said. Yi Qingtang nodded. After thanking Elder Qin, she left the Elder's Hall. The moment Yi Qingtang left, the elder from the outer sect's array faction walked into the elder's hall. He had heard everything Yi Qingtang said from a dark corner and was, similarly, shocked by Yi Qingtang's wild act. Elder Qin, wasn't Yi Qingtang a little too insane? Why didn't you persuade her? The outer sect elder frowned. Elder Qin shook his head helplessly. I did persuade her, but you saw the results as well. Yi Qingtang is not like ordinary disciples. She has her own plans. Although this is insane, one cannot help but be expectant. Elder Qin watched Yi Qingtang's fading back with an anticipating look. If Yi Qingtang really passes the inner sect assessment this year, many jaws would drop, commented the outer sect elder. Elder Qin nodded. If she really has such an ability, I really have to pay attention to her. The two elders smiled at each other, but both thought that such a possibility was almost zero. Chapter 297. After leaving the elder's hall, Yi Qingtang had a plan for the future. Although over 40,000 Xianming points were spent, her heart did not ache. She made a plan for the inner sect assessment happening half a month later. There were still over 5,000 Xianming points, and perhaps it was enough for her to choose some weapons she liked in the Xianming pavilion. At that thought, Yi Qingtang could not help but recall the sword that the young Wind Moon sect disciple dropped. Although she only used it for a while, the feel of it really amazed her. If she could obtain a similar weapon, she would have a higher chance of passing the upcoming inner sect assessment. After making up her mind, Yi Qingtang headed to the Xianming pavilion straight away. There were countless rare and valuable items in the Xianming pavilion. Anything one could think of could be obtained in this pavilion, and as long as one had enough Xianming points to pay, they could acquire the items they liked. In her previous life, Yi Qingtang never went to the Xianming pavilion. Most of the Xianming points that she accumulated with great difficulty were used to exchange for Shi spirit pills, and she did not have any extra Xianming points to spend in the Xianming pavilion. There were quite a few disciples in the Xianming pavilion at that time, and everyone was searching for a treasure they were attracted to. The moment Yi Qingtang entered the Xianming pavilion, she saw a familiar figure. Junior sister Yi. Dai Changming was in the pavilion with a handsome youth and came up to greet Yi Qingtang when he suddenly saw her walking in. Senior brother Dai. Yi Qingtang nodded as she took a casual glance at the youth beside Dai Changming. The youth had thick eyebrows and beautiful eyes. He was extremely good-looking and had a remarkable disposition. While he was standing aside silently, his extraordinary charisma was unable to be concealed. Ji Xianyuan? Yi Qingtang raised a brow slightly. The man beside Dai Changming was called Ji Xianyuan. When Yi Qingtang entered Xianling sect in her previous lifetime, Ji Xianyuan was already an inner sect disciple. Moreover, he had superb endowments and was thought highly of by the elders. Are you here to exchange for treasures as well? What a coincidence! I'm here today with senior brother Ji to collect a spirit animal, Dai Changming said with a smile. Because of the Deer City incident previously, Dai Changming felt a sense of gratitude towards Yi Qingtang. Ji Xianyuan, from aside, scanned Yi Qingtang without any emotions. The Xianming pavilion was divided into 9 areas, and the items that could be exchanged in each area were different. Some areas had spirit pills and miraculous herbs while others had rare treasures and spirit animals. Divine weapons were all the more in great quantities, and even some mystic technique scriptures could be found here. However, it was just that the number of Xianming points required was huge, and there were few outer sect disciples who had the ability to exchange for these treasures. The sight could not help but pique the curiosity of other disciples in the pavilion. Dai Changming was the 10th elite disciple on the ranking charts, while Ji Xianyuan, whom everyone knew, was ranked first in the outer sect and topped the ranking chart. These two people could be said to have a certain influence in the outer sect, and they rarely interacted with other disciples. Yet, unexpectedly, one of them actually initiated a conversation with this young new disciple today. It is a coincidence indeed. Yi Qingtang chuckled. As they were speaking, the warden of Xianming Pavilion walked over with a huge metal cage being pushed out by 2 workers behind him. Once everyone saw that metal cage, gasps erupted. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.